dangerous and aggressive animals permits for this slide. We did feel like it was appropriate to raise these fees to help recruit and get them right sized to what the cost of those areas are, as well as the sellers and litter permits. Well, we believe there'll be probably minimal impact to most of the residents with these permit increases. They do reflect getting closer to recouping the cost of the services. The next slide is another list of continued revenue enhancements, and most of those have to do with, again, the dangerous dog, the fees that come along with dangerous dogs. I did want to highlight two new fees. One would be a dangerous dog inspection. Currently, there is no fee for when we have to go out and inspect for a dangerous dog. We have fees for every other permit except for that one, and so felt it was important due to the amount of time that it takes, especially the follow-up and compliance appointment, that we address that, and then that we charge the owners appropriately for that. The second one is the warrant impound fee. That is a proposed $150 fee for people that are uncooperative that requires us to get a warrant. There's a significant amount of administrative work that goes into those warrants and to getting them processed, and so we felt it appropriate. And then lastly, you'll see that we proposing to raise the fees on 3 of the vaccines that we have. Minimal impact, I think, to our residents. As you know, we still offer free vaccine clinics nearly every single weekend to our residents. This will mostly be impacted to those residents that are reclaiming their animals from the shelter. Total estimated cost increase to that revenue is about $52,000. I want to go over the reductions. It's about $346,000 in reductions. As you can see, most of our reductions are going to be due to about $244,000 of that is due to just right sizing various line items, chems and meds, things that do with travel and education. There's about $42,000 in that is going to be right sizing our rescue partner incentive program. There's no impact to that program. It's really just right sizing it to the amount that we're currently spending today. We do believe that we'll be able to find alternative placement to reach our goal of the number of animals that we place through that program through our non-paid partners, as well as we've seen an increase in the number of adoptions that we're doing, which we'll highlight later on in the presentation. Then lastly, a reduction of one animal care attendant. That's about $59,000. Really, the impact that this reduction will have is that a longer time for our non-public areas to get cleaned. So they'll probably be cleaned later in the day. Those positions also are responsible for turnover of the kennels in order to get animals through the system faster. So we may see a slow in the amount of time that it takes to get animals turned over for new incoming animals coming in. This slide is an update on the hospital mandate. We're excited that this is currently under construction. We just started going vertical last week, so it feels like it's starting to become real now for us. And that construction is due the new section of the hospital is due to be done in the spring of 2027. Once that piece of the hospital is done, we will move into that. And then the current 3,000 square feet that we are operating in the clinic will be renovated. And then that second piece of the project will be done in the fall of 2027. There was a mandate that came along with those positions, or with that hospital, that added 10 new positions for about $388,000, and then about $1.5 million in new non-personnel funding that will also be contract veterinarians, as well as equipment and supplies that come along with operating a new facility. Just to put it in perspective, our current facility that we're operating in is about 3,000 square feet. The total of the new hospital building, as well as that renovation, is going to be about 17,000 square feet. And then also, I wanted to mention we are in the process of working on an agreement to have one of our partners take on the operation of the Eastside Clinic. This is a significant savings to the city, and it also allowed us to redirect that funding for that off-site clinic to be redirected in the amount of $1.12 million towards that hospital mandate so that we can operate into the new hospital. I think most of you that were here at the time knew that the plan all along was to have outside partner agencies run those two off-site clinics, and so we're grateful to be able to finally be able to make that happen for our Eastside Clinic. And then lastly, our last slide is really going to be about our program performance. I'm very proud of the work that our staff has done over the last year. We've seen significant progress in all of the areas that we're measuring in our metrics. And as you can see, our critical call response rate is up from last year from 86% to 93.4%. And I also want to highlight that we just came off of June and July, which had 98 and 97.7% critical call response rates, our highest in our history. Dangerous dog cases worked. We're estimating to finish the year about 522, almost exactly what we did last year. Our target for next year is still around that 520. We don't anticipate those decreasing at this time. Spay-neuter surgeries, we're going to finish with just under 41,000. As you all know, our target for last year was just over 41,000. So we're going to be just shy of that. A lot of that has to do with, again, veterinarian support, having the veterinarians to be able to do those surgeries every day. And then our live release rate. We increased our live release rate by another 2% this year, went up from 86 to 88%. Very proud, again, of the team. That a lot of work has gone into that. And largely that is to do to that last metric that I want to talk about is our adoptions. As you can see, we're estimated to finish with about 7,200 adoptions, about 28% increase in the number of adoptions this year for our staff and our teams. And very grateful to our staff for being able to come up with very different ways to bring residents into our shelter and to be able to increase those adoptions in that way. Well, that includes the presentation for ACS. I'm now going to turn over to Amin Tomaz for Development Services.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Amin Tomaz, Director of Development Services. My presentation will talk about the department overview, 2027 proposed budget, revenues, performance for both funds, the General Fund and the Enterprise Fund, and finally, 2027 reductions, proposed reductions. Development services consist of three divisions. Land development, that is responsible for platting, zoning, policy administration, tree preservation, traffic reviews, short-term rentals, and street lights. The second division is building development division. It's responsible for residential and commercial plan reviews, residential and commercial inspections. Also, we have some teams that they are kind of combined. They do inspections and plan review, such as the school team, affordable housing team, strike team, and airport. And then finally, the last division is code enforcement, responsible to to enforce the maintenance code throughout the city. We have area officers distributed throughout the city to do that. But then we have special teams such as the zoning and licensing team, neighborhood enhancement team, and the graffiti team. We also have very unique programs such as the Proactive Apartment Inspection Program and the Senior Assistant Program. Our proposed budget for 27 is $74 million. It authorizes 507 positions. 157 of those is General Fund, and 350 is Development Services. The $74 million is divided into $20 million for General Fund and $54 for Development Services. The pie chart shows the breakdown of those fees. Just to mention, as of today, we have 67 vacancies in Development Services in total, 59 in the development side, and then 8 code enforcement side. Let's talk about the permits that we receive for Development Services. As you know, Development Services is Enterprise Fund. It was created in 2007, and the reason for that is to utilize the revenue to support the development activities. Our revenue is really related to the development, so it fluctuates with the development activities. If we look at the chart here, the green line is the commercial, new and existing commercial permits. You can see it does fluctuate, but overall it's somewhat stable. Compared to the blue line, it's new residential. Prior to COVID, we were always hovering around 3,000 to 3,500 new residential permits, but then during COVID, it skyrocketed to record high, and then it started going down after that. The reason for the spike was the historic low interest rates, which allowed more construction, and then again it dipped down in 2023, but then in 24 it rebounded, and the reason for that is due to the housing affordability and the steady population growth in San Antonio. So what we are estimating in 27 is to be very similar to 26, kind of really flat right now. If we compare us with other cities in Texas, overall the other cities in Texas, we did look at Austin, Corpus, Dallas, El Paso, Fort Worth, and Houston, and they all are seeing roughly the same impact we have. And our proposal for revenue enhancement in 2027, let me start with development services is currently experiencing an imbalanced budget, and it is due to the decline in permits and obviously the increase in our operational cost, vehicles, gas, employees, things like that. So what we did is we implemented a strategic plan beginning of this fiscal year, October 1, 2025. We implemented a strategic plan to freeze 42 positions. And as I mentioned now, we are actually up to 59 positions total in development services. So we wanted to freeze those positions to minimize our expenses and try to balance the budget. But even with that freeze, we are still having an imbalance. So we collaborated with the stakeholders from the development community. We worked with Real Estate Council of San Antonio, the Greater San Antonio Builders Association, Associated General Contractors, Associated Builders and Contractors, and I really want to thank them for their time and effort. We always partner with them. About 90% of our permits actually come through those groups and their members. So we really wanted to work with them to make sure we come up with a solution that works for them and for us. So we evaluated all the options. We provided 5 different options to make sure we stabilize the fund without impacting our service level agreement that we agreed upon with them a while back. And the solution that we received consensus for is a 35% increase, but it's divided over the 3 years. So this year is 15% increase on permits with 1% surcharge. Next year, 12%, and the third year is 8%. And what we did is we committed that we will do a deep dive and reevaluate our fees every 3 years instead of waiting 18 years as happened now. So the last time the fees were updated, 87% of the fees were updated in 2008. So the good news is everybody was paying cheap permits for 18 years, but now we are looking at it and we're going to evaluate every 3 years. If council approves this on September 17, the fee will be implemented October 1. This table is just showing again the proposed revenue. So overall, it's showing the current fees and then the increased fee for next year, which is the 15%. The only 2 things here that they are not 15% is the surcharge. As I mentioned, it's 1%. It goes from 3% to 4%. And then the short-term rental, type 1 goes from 300 to 450, and type 2 goes from 450 to 1,000. But remember, those fees are for 3 years. The permits for STRs in San Antonio cover 3-year permit. The building development plan review and inspections teams doing really good. Although we have frozen 42 positions originally in October and now we have 59, we are still meeting all our service level agreements with everything. So we are within 3 days of the residential cycle. We are meeting that. And on the commercial side, we are getting the reviews in 16 days out of, again, our goal of 18. Inspections, we want to do 95%, do the inspections on the day requested, and actually we are at 99% right now. Land development is kind of very similar. We are meeting all our SLAs as well. So we are at 12 days out of 20 for major plats, 5 days out of 10 for minor plats, and 8 days out of 10 for the zoning verification letters. So now I want to move on to the general fund. This is the code enforcement side. So before I talk about the revenue enhancements, I just want to mention that we were tasked to look at every program we have and to do an analysis and make sure that we are cost recovering that program. So we did that, and even with the increases or proposed increases you are seeing here, we are not meeting 100%, but we are getting very close to that. So for example, the proactive apartment inspection program current fee is $100 per unit per year. We are proposing to move it to $200. And remember, this program is not for every apartment. It's only for the apartments that do not comply with code, and they get into the program by having multiple violations. If they comply with code, they don't have to get into this program. Mobile living park is, we are recommending to go up from $35 to $36, so that one was pretty close already. Dangerous premise and vacant lot administration fee, we are recommending to go to $300 from $250. Used auto parts and metal recycling facilities, we are recommending to go from $1,000 to $5,000. And lastly, garage sale, we are increasing that by $4 to $20, from $16 to $20. Again, looking at code enforcement performance, they are doing really good as well, even though we have some vacancies. But the tier 1, it's key health and safety violations. Our response time is 2 days, and we are meeting that this year. Tier 2 is all the property maintenance code violations. Our goal is up to 3 days. We are managing to respond in 2 days. We have a goal of compliance rate. We need to close cases, 90% of the cases within 45 days, and we are estimating to get that done, about 91% of them closed within 45 days. The proactive rate, our goal is 65%. We are estimating to hit the mark and actually more, like 76% proactiveness. And finally, the graffiti abatement team is responsible to abate sites, graffiti sites, 55,000 of those, and we will exceed that by about 3,000 locations. Finally, talking about the reduction. So we have the neighborhood enhancement team, and it consists of 8 employees, 1 supervisor, 2 dangerous premises officers, and 5 code enforcement officers. Our proposal is to eliminate 2 code enforcement officers, which they are vacant today. So we have those 2 vacancies right now. If we do that, we're going to reduce the cases that this team does by 40%. So we're going to go from 3,500 to about 2,200 cases, which means we are reducing our sweeps by 10. So today we do 20 sweeps, 2 per district. By eliminating the 2 positions, we're going to go down to 10 sweeps. So each district will have 1 sweep. We estimate that all our goals will be met. The only difference here is the gap between those 2 numbers, the 3,500 and the 2,200, will turn into a 311 calls, reactive calls. So our number of cases at the end of the year will increase by 2%. That concludes my presentation, and like everybody else, I just want to thank everyone, the budget office and my team. I have an awesome team. Just FYI, Development Services is one of the best development services in the nation. We have all the national recognition. We have the international accreditation services. We have the ISO certifications. We are the highest in the nation. So I'm proud of the team. Thank you. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Thank you to everybody that took the time to make sure all those presentations were as thorough, and certainly for our materials as well. Councilmember White is recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I hope y'all can hear me. It says I'm having connection issues, but let me know if you can't.
We can hear you. Thanks.
Great. Thank everybody that presented. Really appreciate the presentations. I'm going to try to move through this as quickly as possible. For Human Services, on the delegate agencies, the reduction in 2028, is that something that goes into this budget ordinance, or just something that we're anticipating doing next year, but nothing's put in writing or finalized until next year? Is that right?
Yes, Councilman. So this is a planned reduction for fiscal year 28. Council will not take action until next fiscal year.
Okay, got it. On the senior center extended hours, I do want to say that I support that investment. Senior centers are so important, and happy that we're making that investment for the extended hours. On closing the part-time nutrition sites, I know this was a difficult decision, but this was really done through our city's own comprehensive budget review, identifying that we were spending nearly $3,000 per participant at these sites, and so it's tough times, and I'm glad we did these budget reviews, because these are the sort of tough decisions and cuts that we can find through these reviews, and so I do support that. Again, I'll just leave it at this for human services. We've got to really make cuts across the board in this delegate agency funding. I understand these organizations do great work, but again, we cannot be all things to all people, and so the cuts that we're going to do next year, I think will be important to that year's budget, and I think there's potentially additional room to cut there as well. For DSD, I applaud DSD for what we're doing here on the permits. I filed a CCR a year or so ago talking about the need to look at the permits, see if some are outdated, not needed, need to be updated. And, frankly, I think what we found here is that we hadn't updated these fees for a long time. Is that right?
That is correct, Councilman.
Yeah, so what sort of policy do we have as a city? Because I was going to talk about this in a minute, but I might as well do it here. I know there's other cities like Dallas that have policies where they review all fees at least once within every 4-year period. Do we have any sort of policy like that? And you think something like that would make sense?
So, Councilman, as part of the budget process, we review our revenues on an annual basis, and we recommend adjustments to those fees as necessary. In the case of development services being an enterprise fund, we had not recommended increases to the fees due to the fact that that budget was balanced and there was no need to increase those revenues. That is different for the general fund, where we talk about during the goal-setting session with the council as we set priorities for the budget, if there's an appetite to increase fees. So given the situation in our budget, we recommended increases that we hadn't recommended in the past. But to answer your question, we review those revenues on an annual basis.
So all of the fees that we issue as a city are reviewed on an annual basis?
Yes, Councilman.
Okay. On this same topic, and I was going to talk about it when we moved down to animal care services, but Dallas, for instance, with its animal care services and how they do their fees in their budget book, and I did file a memo with a couple of my colleagues a few months ago to say that I would like to see a different style, different layout, more in our budget book. But just to talk about Dallas Animal Care Services, what they do with their fees is they lay out what the current fee is, they lay out what the cost of delivering the service is, and then what the new fee is, and then what percentage of the full cost they're recovering with their fees. Is that something that we can do here so that not only council but the public can see that?
We can do that, Councilman. We have a separate revenue manual that is hundreds of pages, given the number of fees that we have in the city. We can incorporate that information that you mentioned in terms of the current cost of providing the service and in the percentage that we are increasing. So we can incorporate that to the revenue manual. And that is available to the public. We
Okay.
can post that online as well.
Last night we had our budget town hall, and we again got a couple of comments from people saying, how can we better see, exactly what's being spent here in terms of with respect to each department. And so I'll again ask for next year, to better lay this out for people, I think would really be beneficial. People are interested in this, especially right now, as everybody knows, we're going through a budget deficit. So how we can better lay out for people exactly what's being spent, rather than just telling them to go online to some massive system that in some cases is hard to use. I think we really need to do that. And with respect to the fees, understanding the percentage of the cost recovery in the budget books, I think would be beneficial. I guess for DSD moving forward, I don't like the reduction to the neighborhood enhancement teams. These folks do proactive on the ground work in our neighborhoods, addressing code violations and other quality of life issues. And so this is an area where I would have said, I think we need to be investing more, frankly. And from some of the comments that we got last night at our town hall, I think a lot of people in our neighborhoods want more in terms of code enforcement and cleaning up some of these issues. Let me see. For ACS, John, are we, I don't know how else to ask this other than by saying, are we trying to become a no-kill city?
Councilman, we chose not to use the term no-kill here in the city of San Antonio. We do have a goal of a 90% live release rate, which would be the equivalent in other cities of no-kill.
And let me tell you why I'm asking this, because in the last 2 days, and I'll just speak about yesterday, I had some folks come visit me for office hours, and they showed me how over the last 6 years, it looks like, our intake projected for this year.
Councilman White.
Is
Councilman White, please turn on
Yes.
your camera. There you go. Thank you.
Is it not? Is it not on?
It was off for a bit. You're fine now. Go ahead.
It shows. Sorry, it shows that our intake rate is really down, John. And these people were telling me that they believe we are purposefully picking up less animals so that we can move towards being a no-kill city. Is that right?
That's completely false, Councilman. We have to prioritize all of our calls, and due to the number of high volume calls that we receive, priority calls, the way we operate with our stray dog pickup is that we take it for data purposes, we gather that information, and then they use heat mapping to respond to those calls with our Foxtrot team to do sweeps. We were about 1,500 less animals so far, what we're projected to take in this year. So yes, we're seeing a decline in the number of animals entering the shelter. But I also would love to remind you that a few months ago, I provided a report to the council that shows that we are seeing a significant decrease in calls for service, both in strays and in aggressive, critical, and non-critical, as well as the number of animals that are being hit and killed on the roadway. So yes, we're seeing a little bit of a decrease in our intake, but however, our public safety is still our primary focus, and we spend a lot of proactive efforts with our CASA team, with our spay-neuter that we're doing now to help reduce those numbers. And so hopefully the reason why we're seeing that reduction is because we're doing a better job.
Okay. Thank you. Finally, for Metro Health, I want to recognize Metro Health for finding the $3.4 million in efficiencies and reductions that they found. Consolidating community nutrition with the diabetes program under one curriculum, eliminating a vacant lease, right-sizing travel, and temp services are really exactly the kind of discipline I think that we need to see across all departments. And so, Claude, I commend your team and thank you guys for doing that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Munguia.
Thank you, Mayor. Can we start with Melody, DHS? Could you go to the slide on consolidated funding impacts or reductions that are being recommended?
Slides 9, I think.
Slide 10.
Slide 10.
So I do have a big concern and problem with this reduction plan because, and I'm glad you provided this a table because this is what we were all asking for. And so when you look at the council districts here and you see who's most impacted by those cuts, obviously, you know, that's no surprise in districts 1 through 5, which is pretty sad to see. So I would say to my colleagues, some of whom have consistently used the line that this budget can't be all things for all people, and then you say that in this context, it means it's not for District 1 through 5. So I don't understand how this is being
One second.
recommended.
Councilmember
when-
Munguia or Councilmember Villagran, please mute yourself. Thank you. Hi, welcome. Councilmember White, please mute yourself.
Yeah, and give me back 10 seconds, please. So, again, going back to my rant, slide 10, please, if you can put that back up. I don't understand how this is being recommended when it impacts 5, districts significantly, and only maybe 1 or 2 people have been asking for this reduction. So I understand this is looked at, but I don't see how this is going to pass the full council when you're looking at these many thousands of people in districts 1 through 5 who will be booted off social programs. So I would ask us to take another look at that, especially if we're talking about children and seniors and families that are going through struggles. That's very sad to see that. So I would strongly urge this council to push back against that cut. And to my colleagues also who are going to be working with nonprofits and talking about funding, I would strongly suggest including somebody from districts 1 through 5 because we are going to be most affected by those cuts. So I would strongly urge somebody on this side to be included in those conversations. Can we go to Metro Health, please? Claude, can you come up here? And can you go to the Poor Vita slide, please?
I think that would be
Slide 7.
slide, yes.
Slide 7. Well, when it gets up there, I understand why this is kind of being cut. I'm also just disappointed that there's not a single one in D4 that was activated or worked on. So I don't know what the situation was there or what the outreach looked like, but very disappointed to see that there was nothing for District 4. And of course, now this program will be ended, so there'll be nothing for anybody. And can you go to the next slide? I think it was the reductions in your access to care right here. So when you were presenting, you talked a little bit about some statistic for Black maternal health. Can you repeat that, what you said?
So yes, so this is specific to our access to care capacity. So this would eliminate the Community Health Alliance, the Community Alliance for Results in Equity. But the stat that I mentioned was that ending the pilot limits our ability to address maternal mortality, which disproportionately impacts Black women and more than triple the rate of Hispanic and white women and mothers over the age of 40 who are affected more than 3 times as often as younger groups.
Yeah. So I understand the need to move things around your department, but knowing that statistic that you just said, I don't understand why you're recommending to end this program.
So this, just a reminder that this program, this component was one of the priority areas for SA Forward. We had grant funding years ago that allowed us to give birth to that multi-year plan. There were 6 priority areas reflected in that. This is not a direct service. It's tied to building capacity with a network of area providers. We built the team, but this allows us to at least acknowledge the impact. So that's why I wanted to put into context relative to mandated services or other priority service areas.
Yeah. Did you want to add something?
Please freeze the time.
I just wanted to add that, or just to clarify, that the work that we're doing with the Community Health Improvement Plan, that work will continue, and that has a prenatal component to it. It's the pilot program that we had been working on the maternal health, that would be ended.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, again, with that statistic that you said and any of that program, that doesn't look good, certainly. And I certainly hope that those folks stay in Metro Health with those positions, but that's another conversation. And you're recommending ending the Student Ambassador program?
So that program is tied to the Mayor's Fitness Council. So we have one staffing function tied to the general fund, and there are different initiatives anchored to the Mayor's Fitness program. So the Student Ambassador is one key initiative, again, and I showed a map of the council districts where we have the student participants.
And just to clarify, so this Student Ambassador program is different from the Human Services that
Okay,
provide the
that's-
internships during the
okay.
summer. This is a initiative that's done by the Mayor's Fitness Council that allows, that works with teens to do health community programs.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I just want to make sure that that wasn't what I was
Got
thinking
it.
it was.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah, so, okay. Thank you, Claude. John, if you can come up real quick. And then Amin. You know, John, of all the departments getting increases, I fully understand and appreciate that y'all are getting an increase in your department. I think it's a very, very essential service to this department. So if you can go back to the statistics that you had for critical call numbers. I forget what slide that was. So while that's coming up, you have good numbers for sure. Critical call response rate, that's obviously was a priority for the council, and it's been that way. What is the non-critical call response rate look like?
Right now, we're like, I think it's 38.5% is where our non-critical call response, which is up from 16% when we started the process of adding officers and doing all that.
That's good. And so I think, you know, as we do budget cuts and things and we plus up certain departments, I think yours department and trying to get up to a non-critical call rate that's higher is very important for me in D4 because we have a lot of, as you know, strays in District 4. Y'all have been doing fantastic work with a lot of outreach. I've been to two of the sessions that you've done in my district, which is called, is it the Pet Care Connect, right?
Yes, sir.
Which is really good. And our ambassador program with my team, Aaron, has been doing a lot of great work in our district. But we have a lot of, you know, strays, and that affects people's behavior and what we do. And just this morning, actually, my girlfriend was walking our dog, which, by the way, we adopted our dog from ACS. We did our part over the summer. And y'all were very insistent. As soon as I picked out the dog, they were like, that's yours. You can't put it back in the kennel. And so we're very happy with Rex. But this morning she was walking him just on our street, and a stray, you know, came up, and she had to deal with that. So, you know, we don't walk down Ray Ellison because there's always a stray somewhere on that street. A lot of residents are not going to call in stray calls like that. So even though the numbers are down, I think it's also because people are not calling in. And then once we're telling them, right, that we need you to call in for data purposes, like we will not go out there if you call that in, they're not going to call it in. So I definitely need as much help as possible on officers from the rest of the council to ensure that we're meeting as many calls as possible. And so I'm also, you know, curious about the reduction of the shelter position, because if that's going to impact intake capability, that's going to be a problem, right? Because when y'all are full or shelter, you're not going to pick up a stray. And so I just worry about that one reduction that you have, if that's going to impact the kennel space. And then real quick, the K9 building that we got back from K9 at ACS facility, is that being used for kennel space?
Yes, it is. It has about 24 indoor-outdoor kennels that it has, and about another 6 that are just one-sided kennels that we use for moms and nursing pups. It's actually a quiet area. It's nice that we have that now. So yes, it does contribute to the amount of capacity.
Is it at capacity of where it could be for kennel space?
Yes, those 24 kennels are used for kennel space, and recently we converted that to our intake building, and in the process now of changing our processes to where the animals that come in will now go there temporarily before we move to the main kennels. So it is actually increasing our capacity.
Awesome, thank you. And I saw Rita who was here today. Thank you, Rita, for being here, my ACS appointee. I think you go to more budget meetings than maybe Justina does, right? So you're everywhere. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Amin, if you can come up real quick. I had about 47 seconds left. Yes, sir. So impact on the strategic plan. We're very interested in making sure the strategic plan that you all have is going to continue to be implemented. What are your goals for this upcoming fiscal year?
Yeah, we committed to bring back some updates to the PCDC very soon. We have been working on it since we got the approval to adopt that strategic plan, and we will present all the updates to you as soon as possible after we get done with the budget.
Absolutely. Well, I'm certainly supportive of you all getting advanced and better technology, which we've talked about. One of the providers who's reached out and kind of asked to, kind of did a demo for some of us, and I know Councilman Core is very supportive of that. So however we can be supportive of you and getting that, I think would be very beneficial to that plan and getting some greater transparency for us. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Alderete Gavito.
Thank you. Thanks so much for all y'all's work in getting these presentations ready. I'm going to start with DHS. Obviously, we know senior centers are extremely important to residents, but, I do support the reduction of hours. I've already talked about it with some of the seniors at Doris Griffin Senior Center, and we just know that if we're not seeing folks there from 7 to 8, that everyone seems supportive of that. With the 3 part-time nutrition centers closing, I'm also wondering with the CCR to expand transportation to senior centers, if some of those folks can be directed to the closest senior center when that CCR comes to fruition.
So I don't think it will increase transportation capacity for other centers, but we are hoping to do that through one of the 2027 delegate agency contracts. It's with the Northeast Co-op, and what we want to do is work with them to pick up people who live outside
Exactly,
that
right.
5-year
Exactly.
radius.
Yep, absolutely, yeah, and I think that when we're looking at expanding the transportation outside of that 5-mile radius, that will help kind of offset some of these potential nutrition centers closing, because I know that that's not an easy decision. So thank you. On page 508 of the budget book, can someone explain the addition of 42 positions from fiscal year 2027? Because I see in fiscal year 2026 there was 159 positions, and then in 2027 there was 201. So I'm just trying to understand, were these resident-facing positions, or are we looking at reducing the administrative level? What were those positions?
So in fiscal year 2026, the major reduction in in that position count is we reorganized about 36 positions to create the homeless department. And then from 26 to 27, the addition is driven by the senior centers expansion, continuing the expanded hours at the senior center. That's about 36 positions, and then our mandates are about 13 positions.
Okay.
And then we have some reductions as well.
Okay. Yeah, and really, as I had mentioned last week, really looking at the reductions and on the administrative level versus resident-facing services or resident-facing positions. Let's see. One other quick question. What is the overall cost of the ambassador program, and do we have any ROI data on that?
The Student Ambassador Program for Department of Human Services, it's about $150,000. And we serve about 200 kids during the summer through that program.
Okay. All right. So $150,000, 200 kids. Got it. Really quick for Metro Health, can you expand on the workforce development aspect under the director's office?
Yes, thank you, Councilwoman. We are one of the nationally funded initiatives called the Public Health Infrastructure Grant, and so it allowed us to establish a dedicated team at the department. This is now our 4th year from receiving that federal grant, and it allows us to do a better job recruiting and retaining staff to the work of the department. This is anchored to the CDC. There are 107 grantees nationwide, and we are a direct grantee.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, and also too, I mean, I think for me, I'm just looking at like on slide 4, just ways that we could cut administration costs, you know, instead of, again, resident-facing services. I'm wondering too if there are ways that we could consolidate or have more of a shared services model for things like data analytics, and that kind of stuff that serve several different departments. There's no, you don't feel you need to immediately respond. I'm just kind of brainstorming if there, you know, I mean, I know like prior to being on council, just like at Rackspace in USA, you have a shared services model where people are doing data analytics for several different departments, and I'm wondering if there's ways that we could look at doing that here too. Really quick, also too, I had some follow-up questions on the Mayor's Fitness Council. What are the deliverables there?
Thank you, Councilwoman. So the Mayor's Fitness Council has been in existence for 16 years.
Yeah.
It's tethered to a network of, or structured different committees. The deliverables are about engaging students, so the reference to student ambassadors, so that's around educating 6th to 12th graders about promoting healthier lifestyles. And so we do invest in mentorship for those students, so that's one major component. The other is the fact that we are tethered to the San Antonio Business Group on Health. They are a membership association tied to area businesses. They do promote worksite wellness initiatives, and so they are an active member of the Mayor's Fitness Council. The deliverables are really about dovetailing and amplifying the work of the department. Again, one of the key characteristics of public health is about mobilizing and strengthening partnerships. So the deliverables are tied to recruitment of student ambassadors or mentors around different projects anchored to a number of these schools, but also working with area businesses to promote healthier lifestyles.
But we don't have any hard deliverables other than just awareness, right?
Yes, it's primary prevention.
Which is fine.
Yes.
Yeah, and no offense, Mayor, but I mean, I think that there's some of these programs that we just have to really look at that, might be more nice to have than need to have right now. Looking at slide 12 of Metro Health, obviously we're seeing that the general fund budget has grown significantly over the last decade, and I think we're feeling it. Obviously, I know that y'all get grants and that kind of stuff too. And I know all these programs are noble, but I think obviously right now we just need to look at what programs are essential to our residents and have the greatest impact on our residents and stick with that. That's all for now, Dr. Claude. Really quick, John Gary for ACS. I know that y'all's budget is all general fund dollars. What are opportunities that we can look out for grants, whether state or federal grants? Are there state spay and neuter grants we could be going after?
Yes, there are a lot of different opportunities for grants. We did have a state spay neuter grant this year that we did apply for. Unfortunately, we weren't chosen as one of the cities to receive funding from that state grant. We've been working with our GA's office to determine, why that may be and can we do anything more to try to get that funding. We have also received a grant this year from the ASPCA that increased our pet networking team and our foster team. A lot of the grant funds that we get would be for life-saving programs because they're typically done by national organizations that's their priority. And then we've also applied for 2 other grants, one with the ASPCA and then one with the Petco Foundation that we're still waiting on a response from. So we are actively seeking those out.
Okay. No, that's helpful. Yeah, and I think that just departments in general, we need to be bullish on getting outside funding to help supplement some of the services that we would like to continue providing. So thank you for that. And anything that we can do to help support further any of y'all's grant applications, please let us know. Is it possible to see a breakdown of how the positions are broken up for the ACS staff? Like, what I'm curious about is how many ACOs, how many administrative staff, how many vet techs, how many kennel techs, et cetera?
Yes, we have that, and we can definitely
Okay.
provide it.
Yeah, if we could follow up with that, that'd be helpful. And really, again, as I mentioned before, I just really want to see those numbers so we can reduce any administrative overhead versus resident-facing positions. I'm curious, how much revenue does ACS forego through the waived adoption fees?
Well, I'd have to get that number for you to be able to see. I will say that it is a cost of life-saving. If we did not do that, we would significantly reduce the number of adoptions that we do, which would obviously impact that library rate significantly.
Interesting. But also, too, I'm curious how many of the quote-unquote free animals end up coming back to ACS?
That's interesting. Actually, I was thankful enough to be a part of a survey that was done nationally when I was in Oklahoma City, and actually there's proof that shows that there is no correlation between whether there's a fee or no fee. They stay in the home the same amount of time, they see the same amount of veterinary care, and so that myth has been kind of busted a number of years ago, which is why so many shelters are doing the fee-waived adoptions now.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be curious to see our numbers, but also, too, to see the amount that we forego by doing the free services. Let me see. It's on slide 10. It's good to see that the adoptions have gone up along with the live release rate. So, I know that when I first joined council, obviously we knew that ACS was underfunded, extremely underfunded. So we've all been making the right steps to get it right. And so thank you for your efforts, and we just need to keep the gas on the pedal. I'll go in round two. Thanks.
Mayor, may I?
Please.
Mayor, I just wanted to address a comment from Councilwoman Alderete Gavito. We will provide the positions for ACS. Those are on the out on the field conducting operations versus those in administration. I just wanted to indicate that as part of our process of reviewing the functions of the departments, we evaluate the productivity of our operating positions, and we want to make sure that we are supporting them with the administrative support so they can focus on running the operations of the department, either through technology or support. So you'll see when we send the breakout that the number of administration compared to the number of operating positions is much lower, but we'll just wanted to give that context.
Great.
We'll be happy to provide that information.
Thanks, Maria. And for clarification, who performs that analysis?
The department and the budget office.
Okay, great. Thank you. I want to come back. I meant to do it earlier, but I want to come back to the point that Councilman White raised in terms of the $5 million reduction in the delegate agencies. As proposed, that is a key aspect of how the budget closes over 2 years, correct? So this idea that we're going to do it next year, it could change next year, but as you are proposing, that only works in the same way that you have to assume an 8.3% increase over 2 years, right? This only closes if you include the the $5 million reduction in 28 to delegate agencies, correct?
So, Mayor, the plan incorporates the $5 million as a reduction. I would remind the council that we are projecting a $48 million ending balance at the end of 28 to better position us for 2029. So that is incorporated in that plan with that additional balance.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Villagrán.
Thank you. Today is a heavy day as we are here. I thank you for all of those who presented. I am disturbed by the cuts that we see within Human Services and Metro Health, simply because it impacts the residents of District 3 and the districts from 1 through 5. Doing the math, which my council colleague Mickey Rodriguez knows I don't like to do the math, but just from the reductions of San Antonio Education Partnerships and the reductions to the delegate agencies for the funds, that's over 8,000 people impacted. And that's not already what we've lost from Metro Health when federally they came in and cut. So I think it is one of the reasons that I have continually said, if we are going to compete like the other Texas cities that people mention, we need to look at our variable rate and our property taxes, because that's how we fund things. And they have been raising property taxes throughout these past 33 years, and we haven't. And so we sit here and we've made do with what we've had, but we need, in order to get through this, and we knew it was going to be tough, is we need to generate our economic development. We need more jobs. We need more people involved. My concern with the cuts that we have today is it seems to be impacting the youth, and the youth can't work unless their family has a business. They can't work until they're 16, or they do, you know, garage sales and side things that they get paid cash in. And all of this seems to impact, I know for me, is going to impact the youth who can't go to the polls right now and say, hey, this is what I want, this is what I need. And then the other aspect for Metro Health is it's impacting women and their health and women, single mothers. While I understand we need to do this, the 5.1 million, I would like to see us look at that variable rate, see what we can restore in some of these. San Antonio Education Partners in particular, I know we give to Alamo Promise, I know we give to other schools, other universities have that, but sometimes it's just getting them into the doors of a junior college, and they need that, and they're just looking for an excuse not to go. And if they don't have the $500, because it's like $500 to $750 that San Antonio Education Partners does, so that's like books or fees or getting them there. So it's not, but it's impactful for a community that is trying to get to the next step. And yes, a lot of them are apartment dwellers. And that's okay, but I'm very concerned about what we have presented here today. I don't know, again, I go back and I'm sorry, I mean, we need to go back to our public works and our DSD projects and see if there's a possibility we can change that timeline up. I know, and you know this, I mean, my residents aren't going to be happy with the loss of code officers either. So this is a very difficult situation we're in, and we need to look at our return on investments. But I believe that these school-age children that are in middle school that are using some of these programs need to be invested in, because we're having a hard time at the school district level too. So I think I'm hoping I can get the rest of my council colleagues to agree that we need that variable rate, because there are just some things that I know we're going to have to cut and we're not going to get back for a while. But right now, whatever we can salvage, especially regarding health and young people, I think we need to try to. So you don't have to restore the whole $5 million, but at least half back into those funds. So instead of the 8,000 plus that are going to be impacted, it's only 4,000 plus. So understand my commitment is to continue to, because the Mayor's Fitness Council too, they need to get outside. There is a ripple effect. If we do not invest in the youth, then they become problems because they're out on the streets unsupervised, and then there's police get involved. It's just a cycle that I've seen living on in the southern sector, living and breathing in that 1 through 5 area, that I think we need to address also. So if we can partially look at that as we get more presentations to see where cuts can happen, I'd appreciate that, because we do need to I was prepared. I understood we were going to lose a lot from Metro Health because of the administration. What I wasn't prepared for was the delegate agencies that we have right here. That is, I feel, taking us backwards to when we redlined this city in the first place. And so that's thank you for your presentations. I know y'all are trying to do your best with a difficult situation, but we need to prioritize the school age children that these delegate agencies impact, because we're not getting help from where we used to before. So we have to do something about that, because we have a lot of residents, or I feel I have a lot of residents between the ages, between that elementary 5th to high school age in the city of San Antonio, coming out of a pandemic, trying to find their way, and we need to find a way to help them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Galvan.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to all the staff for the presentations today. I'll jump into DHS first. Melody, I know. We've been talking a lot about this before the budget town hall and over the past year. Of course, recognize the cost of the part-time nutrition centers and recognize the cost for Darner in particular, right? Of course, it's still a priority for myself and for my community to maintain this center as much as possible. And I know it's listed in the budget amendments that we're still working through, identifying those things, but just want to reiterate my call to keep that center there. Of course, well, one thing I do want to ask was, can we get the year-to-year or the year-over-year daily attendance of that site since the opening? I just want to kind of see if there's any trends there. I know the draft presentation had a different number there, but nonetheless, would like to see a little bit of that. Overall, right, this is a big priority for a lot of our residents, and I know you know that. Particularly as we've been talking about the Wolf Stadium redevelopment conversations we've been having the past few weeks, the major thing that keeps coming out of that is a full-service senior center and even multi-generational center there, right? So I think it's a little bit of a, I don't know how to describe it, but I guess it feels interesting when we talk about, well, we need this thing here, we know we have the need here, and then also we're going to take in the one that we have here away. I understand, again, the cost. I just want to make that clear and sit right for ourselves, and I don't think it sits right for me or my residents at the moment, let alone the folks from outside the area who also come to this site because of the culture that's been built there. Anywho, I don't expect you to answer that question right now. I think that's just something I wanted to lay out flat there, but I do want to ask about Senior Center Tech. I did receive a letter from a resident who utilizes the Alicia Trevino Senior Center in District 6 about computer classes at the center being discontinued due to lack of funding. Is that something unique to the center? I don't know if you're aware, or is this something across the board that we're seeing with these with this budget?
We do have waiting lists on some of our programs, so it varies by center which programs are the most popular. So we have, in some cases, limited the number of times a senior can sign up for a class. That way, we're allowing seniors that are interested in doing it, to rotate through. So, but eventually they can sign up again for the class.
Got it. So nothing's being cut across the board or reduced for senior?
No, not in the comprehensive centers, not at all.
Okay, got it. Thank you. That's helpful. I think those are all my major questions for you, Melody, or major comments. I think, of course, SAEP is one that I'm also, the scholarship, very protective over a little bit. Just to lay it flat, right, it's $600 for community colleges, $850 for public universities, and $1,500 for private universities, all locally here in our city. And I know it's been echoed a little bit already or mentioned, we have incredible programs here in our city, Promise programs at UTSA, A&M San Antonio, Alamo Colleges, and of course our private universities do a lot of support for our students too. But there is still that gap, right? Each program is a bit different. We had a good conversation at the Education Opportunities Committee earlier this year about all these programs and all the ways that our higher education landscape has shifted over these years to make access more, or to make it more accessible for our students to be able to attend, particularly students with who are on the lower end in terms of income. And the key thing here, right, is the cost of attendance, right? We can always talk about tuition support, and that's very needed. That's the highest cost there. But there are other costs beyond. Talk about housing support, transportation, technology, books, and other fees and such that aren't covered by a lot of these programs. Alamo College has done a great job in making sure that those things are comprehensive. When we talk about the books program that they have there, that I'm very thankful for my own educational journey. But we still have some other strides to make for our folks who are going to four-year universities and such that don't have those programs available at the moment. And so those costs are put onto the student fully. and it continues to be tough, right? And so I think these scholarships in particular help close that gap for a lot of our residents who in particular are coming from inner city ISDs, right? I know Northside used to have a contract with them for a little while, or for a while actually. That's changed with their own funding. Edgewood in particular, we have hundreds of students who come out of Edgewood ISD who receive these scholarships, and that's important, of course, to the residents in my district who are served by this, who are first-generation students who are trying to break the cycles of poverty in their community through education and through their family through education. And so it's a critical tool that we have here, and of course, we can talk about the changes we need to make over time here with this program and with how we want to conduct our higher education support for our students throughout our city, no matter their age. I think it's tough for this one, given the fact that students are expecting this support this October, because that's the way that we dole them out. And so I would not like to pull the rug from under these students currently if we can avoid that. Again, I think we all have heard it from Greater RCTX and many other economic development organizations that this is the crucial determining factor for us securing, San Antonio securing major employers, anything of the sort. It's our educational attainment rate. And this particularly the higher education one. And so I think if anything we can do to keep supporting this work as much as possible with our budget, we have to keep doing that. I think it was more of a statement, Melody. Thank you for. But beyond that, those are just big priorities for DHS. Beyond that, going into Metro Health, I share a little bit of the concern of the Fitness Council as well. I think providing opportunities to our students to be able to support the health of their community is really important. I do want to ask a little bit. I know another colleague asked a little bit like what's been the work done here. Can you talk a little bit about the implemented programs administered by the Fitness Council in brief, and if you can also provide a list of anything that's been created? I know there was a slide about the community. What is it? The health committees do that. I don't know if there's any examples you have.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So just know that the Mayor's Fitness Council, tethered to the department, there have been a number of initiatives that align with SA Forward. These are school-based initiatives where the students do a needs assessment, they identify pet projects. We pair them up with either mentors or our staff. We do have the one dedicated staff function that's tied to this. But bottom line, it's really about peer mentoring. There are different activities that promote advocacy for health initiatives, whether it's wellness initiatives, mental health, any community gardening. So they do present to the council, and they do showcase their projects each year. So it's an incredible way for the students early on to at least promote public health, and we do that in partnership with the business community.
Right. I appreciate that. And of course, I think when we're in these tough moments, we've got to try to figure out how we can address some of these gaps here and these really good programs that we have. Is there, have y'all talked about with the appointees or participants about what that work can continue to look like beyond this? Is that part of the plan beyond, like if it's adopted this way, is that part of the conversation we'll be having?
Yes, so I know that within the executive committee of the Mayor's Fitness Council, there's a lot of talk about scenario planning.
Yeah.
But for now, literally, my task is to at least share with you the impacts. We have not played out what this could look like, including whether or not area businesses would take on this work.
Right. Okay. Understood. I think that's, of course, the key step here, right? If there's any businesses or even the schools themselves, any staff, of course, they're also stretched on their own end. If there's any way that we can find external partners to assist with this work, I think that'd be great, because I think, again, it's accomplishing a lot of the work that we have here, and I'm not mistaken, one of the key ones in District 6 is the Taft Bike Club as well, that encourages safe bike riding in our communities and it gets our students out and about into the streets in a positive way. And so I think that's just, things like that, of course, are a good feel to have, good productive uses of our students' times. But also, right, if there's ways that we can adjust some of the costs there and see if we can get external partners to help out, that'd be great. So that way there's a smooth transition, similar to the even scholarship conversation here, right? I think those are all my questions for you, Claude. Thank you for all the work of you and your team.
All right, thank you.
On ACS, I'll say just outright about the vacant position that we're looking to pull back on. It makes me a little uncomfortable. I know it's a vacant position, and that's, is what it is. But just seeing the impact that it can have on the cleaning of kennels, kennel space, impact to adoptions, I don't know if I feel comfortable moving forward with that particular one, just because this is such a key issue for many of our residents and communities. Any kind of impact that's going to, any kind of day-to-day impact to our operations at the ACS shelter or ACS in general, I am weary about. But I do want to ask John really quickly, what's the non-critical call response rate year over year I know that was not what a big focus is at the moment, but that's one that your residents ask a lot about. Do you have that information?
I'd have to look at the year. I can tell you currently it's about 38.5% is our, and then I can tell you when we in 2023 or 2024 when we added the officers, it was only 16%. So I
Right.
can't tell you that growth from there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I know it's been an ongoing work right here. We have limited space for kennels as well, and all the things that come with that. Spay neuter will help with those pieces, but understanding a little bit post this budget, what's needed to increase that rate. I think it's been a big concern for our residents that don't know, right, if this is a dangerous dog nearby them just yet. Don't know if it's a dangerous loose animal, but it's something that's a big concern, or there's a large group of animals walking around, seem friendly from afar, not sure what to do with them. And so I think being able to increase that rate however we can, right, being able to be clear with us about what that looks like so we can make those better judgments for the next budget, and even this one, would be helpful.
Yeah, and we can certainly do that. You know, I will say the proactive efforts that we're doing, I think, is the real approach. You know, I think we now know in the animal welfare industry that the old capture and bring in and euthanize method don't work. We did it for decades,
Fair
and
enough,
frankly,
yeah.
when I started there, that's how we did it. And so the proactive methods, like our Pet Care Connect, are going to be the programs that I think, if we're truly going to make an impact in the number of animals in the community that are roaming free, is expanding those programs.
And that's great. And that's great to see that scale, too, to help us out, kind of determine that pathway. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Cord.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for working really hard on these presentations. I'm going to start off with a little bit of purple lining in that in the DHS presentation, I noticed that we still have Head Start funding, which this time last year I wouldn't have been so sure. So a little bit of good news amidst all of this conversation. I'll start off with SAEP. So if you could come up and bring up slide 5 for me. I know some of my colleagues had already mentioned this, and I mentioned this a little bit, but I appreciate this breakdown of the recipients. I did want to shout out that District 4 on this slide has actually the most amount of recipients from 2025. But for the math here, it doesn't seem to make sense. So it's 2.2 million, but if you calculate that 3349 with 45% of it for $600 per year, 40% at $850 per year, and 15% at $1,500 per year, that doesn't match to the 2.2 million. So are we just saying that we give them and they raise the extra money, and those are just what the cost breakdown is?
Yes, so the actual scholarship fund is 2.1 million from the city, and whatever they are able to raise or develop during the year, and then they'll provide the scholarships to that point.
Got it. So these are their total recipients, not necessarily the ones that we are supporting with our dollars.
Yes.
Okay. So I think for this, and I know it's already been mentioned, but one of the challenges that we're having is with Alamo Promise. Alamo Promise is last dollar scholarships, so this would take place first before Alamo Promise jumps in. And so since Alamo Promise is 45% of that budget, one way I think we could get to at least a median or compromise for SAEP is to give them 55% of their budget this year, just assuming that they have a similar trend where they're spending 40 to 45% of their budget for Alamo Promise kids, that we let Alamo Promise handle those students and we focus on the other public and private institutions. So that would be my recommendation for amendment for SAEP, is to at least give them 55% based on the 2025 numbers, and we can look at 2026. Obviously, the members on the board there can work through what that looks like, but if we do have to come to a compromise, like Councilmember Villagrán was saying, that's what I would like to see considered for the amendment process. I'm also piggybacking on the delegate agency conversation. I know that's for next year, so what I'd like to see is if there's enough support for it as budget conversations go on, maybe we, like you mentioned, Maria, take that out of the proposed plan so that we just decrease, or if there's any revenue increases that come up that we're talking about from all of these conversations, that we consider removing that even from the proposed plan for next year. I just wanted to say, if you could go to slide 10 on the DHS presentation. I know it's really hard, and Dr. Jacobs, thank you for all of the work that you're doing to think about the projects that we had to and the programs we had to cut, but just like a little bit of recognition for the work that our organizations are doing. The programs that we fund, we're only funding a small part of the actual total funding, right? So we're giving $5 million, but our dollars are being leveraged. So when we put money into these organizations, we're actually able to go a lot further with our dollar. That's why you're able to see a $500 essentially rate of return for each person that's being helped with these dollars. $5 million here goes a lot further than some of our, unfortunately, our local programs that we're doing all of the work for, right? It takes up a lot of staff capacity, which costs our programs because we're 100% covering them. So one of the things that made me thought of was, one, this just creates the case for even more of why we should be looking for supporting this, but also made me think about what are some of the programs that we were doing at Metro Health that we could find nonprofits in the community to help take on if we provided some support. So council member mentioned that we should have someone from this side. I volunteer as tribute to help with the delegate agency conversation with some of my colleagues, but I would like to see if we could figure out how to ask some of our local organizations to say, would somebody be willing to take on the Student Ambassador Program as a part of the work they're already doing in schools? Is there a healthy nutrition program that we might be able to find and support rather than taking it all on individually? And so that's what, Dr. Jacobs, my only comment to you is, like, if you guys have guidance for the delegate agency team, how could we put that into youth success bucket for our process as we go through the fall? For ACS, can we actually bring up, I think it's slide 6. So I'd like to see, like, some of these, this is tricky, right? So for litter permits, how do we actually get people to apply and do litter permits? Like, is there any way for us to measure how many people are having litters and how many are actually getting permits?
Well, it'd almost be impossible to figure that number out just because they're spread out everywhere. But we do know it's significant. The number, you could tell by the few that we sell every year that it's very, very low compared to the number of litters being born.
Okay, but there's no way for us to figure out, like, how and hold folks accountable. It's just too much. I don't know, do other cities do a good job of that? I'm assuming, like, or at least if we could find out how many people are actually, like, adding a chart. I know it's included in the aggressive animal. Like, it's the same thing I said last time. I'm like, how are there only 5 people that need to fill out this, that are paying this fee? Just curious to see how we can get these numbers up a little bit more, if there's an enforcement mechanism or way, additional support that we could use.
That's what it definitely would take. It would have to take, a team of individuals, doing research, watching the online posts and those kind of things. And unfortunately, due to the amount of critical call response, we just don't have that.
Yeah, okay. And then on slide 10 on this, why is our target for adoptions decreasing for fiscal year 2027?
Well, mostly because we saw that number increase so dramatically this year that was our target for last year, and we just maintained it because we wanted to ensure that it was going to be sustainable for us.
That's not how it works, John. When we raise the bar, we got to raise the bar even more, right? When we do, and we don't have fire today, but they know this. When we raise the bar, I would encourage us to say, because that's what our real goal is, right? You mentioned earlier that we're not technically a no-kill, but our real goal is we want live release. We want folks to adopt these dogs, or these pets at least. So we should try to find more, Councilmember Munguias, and try to see if we can raise it. I would encourage you to think about raising that goal to 7,500, and then next year, if we don't come back and hit it, you can say, hey, we were really aggressive with our goal this year, but with the new spay and neuter centers, which I know are like at least working for ours that we have on Culebra and the others. I know there's going to be efficiencies with the D2 site too, but with the hospital, I feel like we can. Is the hospital going to be online this year?
It'll be the spring of FY27 is whenever the new part
so
will
it'll be online. So I'd like to see if we could maybe increase that target to show that we're continuously growing. And then the last question I have for you is, I know the fees for, this is back on slide 7. Some of these fees for vaccines are increasing. Those are transferred over to the individual adopting, right?
Not the adopters. There's an adoption fee that includes all of that. So
Okay.
that's not going to, the adopters aren't going to feel it. It's going to be mostly for people who are reclaiming their pets, dangerous, aggressive, those animals that are being reclaimed, or bites that are being reclaimed from the shelter. Those would be who would see those fees.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure those folks weren't, so none of our adoption fees or anything like that are changing.
That's correct.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, John. I'll start on DSD. I obviously have the most amount for DSD. I know, Amin, that you love me. I'll start off just by echoing Councilmember Munguia's statement on Telemi. He was actually the one who connected me to this, and y'all know how much of a data nerd I am. So I am going to send you guys all the demo so that you can see the video of this really cool software. I understand we might have to do an RFP. I just want to make sure there is funding for the RFP included in the budget. Essentially what it does is, and Councilmember Castillo talks a lot about vacant land and vacant structures and how that really affects our community. It layers all of our city on maps with everything that you could possibly imagine. It can pull from Excella all of the code issues. It can pull from actually can pull ACS data for spay and neuter issues. And we can make whatever we want public and keep whatever we want internal. So we could show specific things to the community. We can look at high volume calls for violent crime. It could help us with our violent crime reduction plan for Part 3. I think it's a really great tool. They quoted like $200K for it. So I know, again, RFP official things, but I just wanted to see if it's in the budget.
Yeah, there's money in the budget to fund a potential software solution, Councilwoman.
Okay.
And we'll absolutely follow all procurement procedures and rules.
Don't break any laws. Okay, I'll buzz back in on the second one for all the rest of the DST stuff. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Mesa Gonzalez.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentations. I think we cover a lot of ground here with these departments, but just a few questions. I'll start with DHS. Then I know this is for the participants in 28, the 9350. Is there, and I asked this, I think, in goal setting, I guess, is there a capacity with existing programs that we fund to shepherd those 9350 into those resources? Instead of, are we cutting them completely, or are those 9350 finding resources in other programs?
So they would be finding resources elsewhere. If you're talking about, do city programs, city-operated programs have the capacity? I would say probably not for 9,000 participants. If there's a case where, you know, a program is not receiving funding any longer and they can't find capacity elsewhere in their agency for people, then we would potentially help reach out to other agencies to move clients.
Okay. I mean, that's concerning, and just that, like, the boomerang's going to come back, right, at some point. And so where does it land, and how hard does it land? I know this could be 2 years out, but it's just, I think, the reality of whatever we cut. I think the impact we'll see down the road, and that's concerning to me. So this is in 28, but I think in that conversation that we have on delegate agencies, it's important that, you know, we've got, in District 8, we've got UT San Antonio, their College of, I think it's, what is it, Health, Community, and Policy. We have Methodist Healthcare Ministries. I know one of their targets is food security. So have we engaged in conversations with them about what their capacity looks like?
We have not, but that would be something we do over the coming year as we prepare for another process.
Okay, yeah, I think that would all be helpful, whether we're talking about the results in the equity maternal health, but this is Metro Health, but I feel like they're just, there's organizations there within the medical center that I hope we can at least have a conversation with, right? I don't know if that's happened or not, or.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Just to put into context, the Community Health Improvement Plan, there are a number of community partners who are members of that. So, for example, the Bexar County Health Collaborative, which includes Methodist Healthcare Ministries and other community providers. So just know that the 4 priority areas, We have staff who support each of the working groups around prenatal care, the food insecurity, housing instability, as well as behavioral health. So we're not alone, but just to add to the context in terms of the CHIP.
And while you're up here, I guess, is there on slide 8 for Metro Health, for the pilot program, is there any sort of issue stopping kind of midstream on the data?
Yes, okay, so for the Community Alliance for Results and Equity, for the pilot, so that is tied to a broader network of community providers.
Okay.
So we're early in that, and this would be one of the impacts by virtue of our staffing component. So the alliance itself would go away, but the ongoing work around the prenatal work group would continue.
And who would continue that work?
So
Those other partners?
Yes, that's the task right now. Again,
Yeah.
we're one of many.
Okay. I'll go back to Melody, sorry.
Got it, no worries.
On the San Antonio Education Partnership, slide 5, they're outside, I guess, county, they made up like the third highest amount of recipients. So do the scholarships extend to, I guess, can you explain that? How are the outside of the city of San Antonio folks considered in this?
Well, part of it is by school district, and so we have school districts that are mostly in the city of San Antonio and partly in Bexar County. And so we don't ask the partnership to go in and talk to the students and say, oh, if you live in the county, you can't participate. Because they're combined, there are a few county people that are included in the scholarship program.
Can you break that number down for me? Just, I mean, you can send
Sure,
a memo or
we'll
something.
break it down. Also, they do raise funding separate from the city funding. I think this year they're paying out about $2.4 million in scholarships. $2.1 million of that is City of San Antonio, so they could use that other $300,000 to fund scholarships for students in the county.
Yeah, I guess if you could just send something.
Yeah, we'll work with them to break that down.
Yeah, and then on the 90 District 8 students, because I thought Northside and Northeast ISD were not eligible, and those are the districts in District 8, so just curious where those kids are.
So this is from 2025. I think Northside was still in the program for 2025, and this was the first year they weren't.
Is there a reason why they weren't?
They decided to drop out.
Oh, okay.
Each school district pays a fee based on the number of high schools that are served.
Okay.
So both of those dropped out over the last couple of years.
Okay. I think that's it on DHS. For Metro Health, sorry, Claude. Just a quick question on the Mayor's Fitness Council as well. I saw that I think the outside city limits is also maybe the third highest here or second highest of student ambassadors. And so is that also based on their school district, or what is that?
Yes, there are a number of independent school districts that participate in the program, and so we wanted to at least give a snapshot across the districts, but also acknowledge that there are participants from outside the city limits.
Okay, can you also send a breakdown of what school
Sure.
districts they come from, and
Sure.
that
We
would
can
be
provide
helpful.
that. Yes.
Okay. And then really quickly with DSD, I think it's slide 9 or 5, the revenue enhancements. If we could be the enterprise fund, wouldn't that be so lovely? So does any of that, does that help us in the general fund in any way, shape, or form? Does it take pressure off of us in any way? No, nothing.
No.
Okay.
We cannot utilize the enterprise
No,
fund.
yeah, I know we
for-
can. I just didn't know if there was any programs.
Unfortunately, no.
No, okay. On slide, where is it? Slide 5, I think it's a list of stakeholders. I appreciate the note, 90% of the permits come from these groups that you work with, but I think more is always, well, in this case, I think it would be a good thing for the San Antonio Apartment Association just to include them in that? Would there be value in doing that, or?
We did notify the apartment association in regards to the proactive apartment inspection fee increase. We notified them last week, and we will meet with them this coming week.
Okay, but are they part of the stakeholder group?
The specific group we impaneled for this are focused on the developers and builders, right?
The permits?
They manage
Okay.
once the complexes are built, right? So they're definitely plugged into our other groups, but not necessarily on the building permit side.
Okay. Those are all my questions. I think for animal care services, the main thing that I agree on the proactive methods. I think those are obviously the most helpful. And I'm curious on the education side of how we are just educating the community in every which way possible on loose and dangerous dogs. I mean, this becomes national news anytime this happens now. And so maybe that's something you can share offline or in a memo as well. But I was at where was I at it was a school event, and every kid, every grade that I met with, I had 4 classes that day. It was career day, sorry. And I had 4 classes, and every single one of those kids knew about the color of the bins. I was pleasantly surprised. But I feel that there needs to be some major education efforts on the animal care services side when it comes to, and I know we do it, but I just want to know more about what specifically we are doing in that space.
Certainly, we could definitely put some information together for you. Most of ours is done through invite. Through our CASA team, we go out to schools when requested, and then we have a neighborhood engagement person that also does a lot of it as well.
Okay. Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Castillo.
Thank you all for the presentation. Again, appreciate the continued work and the community engagement. I'd like to begin with the Department of Human Services. Yesterday we had our budget town hall, and we had a wide number of nonprofit leaders come out and share what their work is and the value and the importance of us taking into consideration the impact of our delegate agencies. So similar to my colleagues that caution with the reduction of $5 million to our delegate agencies, I shared that concern. I think it's important, and as I asked Maria to explain yesterday at the town hall, to explain and define to our constituents what those are, the roles and impact for families, youth, in our communities as a whole. Because when we look at past supported delegate agencies, I see, for example, we have here the Children's Bereavement Center, right? So this is connecting our youth who are experiencing some type of trauma to assistance. And Melody, can you share a little bit about, for example, what the Children's Bereavement Center provides to our constituency?
So Children's Bereavement Center is open to anyone who has experienced the loss of a parent or a parent being taken from the home. They also provide grief counseling when there are emergency events, urgent events. They went to Uvalde, Somerville, or the church. So yeah, they respond to whatever's happening in the community, and they're also there day to day.
Can you also share a bit about Seton Home and their role and work with foster youth?
So Seton Home offers a place to go for youth who are pregnant or parenting and are underage. They actually are wards of the state. The state provides partial funding to Seton Home, and the city's funding provides enhanced programming.
And lastly, can you share a bit about the Autism Community Network?
So the Autism Community Networks helps families with children who are diagnosed with autism or may not have been yet diagnosed and are going through that very long process to get to that diagnosis. And they help them access the treatments that are evidence-based and working.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Melody. And I wanted to highlight a couple of the delegate agencies that have been funded in the past, because these are invaluable resources that I know constituents all throughout the city of San Antonio rely on. And based on slide 10, of course, it is the majority of residents in District 1 through 5 that lean on these services and support. So thank you, Melody. I also wanted to highlight, right, in terms of the work that we do regarding public safety, my understanding and what I've heard from some of the nonprofits is that oftentimes safe officers or someone at a substation will then give referrals to some of these delegate agencies.
Yes.
So I think it's important for us to acknowledge the intersection of this work, and as we navigate public safety, the conversation around reducing violent crime and homelessness, and we look at this list, these partners play a huge role in ensuring that we, one, ensure that our foster youth don't go down the track of incarceration and or homelessness, ensuring parents that are overwhelmed have access to care with their children who may have autism or are looking to get tested for autism, and then, of course, many of the reentry services as well. So wanted to thank you and your work on that, but just wanted to leave that for my colleagues in the public to understand, right, the role of delegate agencies. These aren't nice to haves, these are must haves for the residents of San Antonio. So as we navigate the conversation, the reduction, you know, I wouldn't be doing my part if I didn't advocate for delegate agencies, because again, the high concentration of inner city residents that rely on them. And then, of course, SA Youth, all that they do for getting our youth on the correct track, their success with connecting youth to their GEDs, ready to work, and, of course, the Good Samaritan that serves multi-generations, right? They're plugging in our youth and our seniors into community engagement and restoring hope, because Good Samaritan has been able to earmark bond dollars for Benavides Park through their advocacy. So I just wanted to highlight those two pieces. What I am grateful to see within the budget for the Department of Human Services were the funds earmarked for positions for the Weston Hope and Action Center. I know that's in District 1, but many District 5 residents really enjoy going to that senior center, so pleased to see that you all have earmarked some funding for those positions. Thank you, Melody. Moving on to Metro Health, of course, what we're seeing here in terms of reductions is something that gives our team pause, given the high health disparities that we see. And I wanted clarification for Stand Up SA. Just for clarification, we will not see any reduction in terms of folks out in the field with Stand Up SA.
No, ma'am. That is tethered to the general fund, but mostly supported by the Medicaid 1115 waiver program.
All right, thank you, Dr. Jacob. My team and I have had a conversation, a couple of meetings with reproductive advocates, and they're asking questions in terms of access to STI care, reproductive health care. Can you share a little bit about what's currently in the budget, where folks can continue to get tested for STI, so on and so forth?
Right. So our communicable disease division anchors the lion's share of the testing modalities. So for sexually transmitted infections, HIV, we do have the clinic staff. That is a mix of federal grants as well as a general fund. But we just know that we continue to provide those services, the array of screening services. We do have a mobile outreach team that supports that work in general. So just know that we stay committed to those services, and that is in connection to a network of area providers to make sure that the referrals are in place.
All right, thank you, Dr. Jacob.
You're very welcome.
I wanted to move on to Animal Care Service. Of course, wanted to thank John and Karen Spear, who's our appointee to the ACS board, who's, of course, always has her pulse on all things animals, not just in D5, but all throughout the city of San Antonio, and, of course, serving as our liaison for the ambassador program, which is very invaluable. And of course, yesterday at our budget town hall, we had some animal advocates that often come to public comment, and their question was, right, in terms of picking up stray animals, what my commitment would be. And what I shared with them was it's contingent upon a property tax adjustment to support the programs that are proposed in this budget. What I think would be of value in terms of the response to aggressive animals, I believe it's maybe slide 10 that has the percentages. If we can receive district-specific data, I would appreciate that, just to better understand. Yeah, with the critical call data, I would like to see if we can have a breakdown per district. That would be helpful. And then in addition to that, similar to Councilman Munguia, with the reduction of the animal care position, that it may limit incoming animals, gives me concern because stray animals continues to be an issue in District 5. So I'm hopeful that we can identify funding to support that position. About how many animals do we expect we would not have space for with no longer having that position?
It is a challenge. I will say that it'd be hard for me to give you that number, and it may not impact it as much as we think. I think the more significant impact is going to be the non-public areas getting cleaned later than it would be for affecting the capacity.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I look forward to the district-specific data. Thank you, John. And then I will be brief with code compliance. I'm fully supportive of the cost recovery fees. You just saved my staff and I time on 2 council consideration requests, so thank you and your team for identifying ways to recoup cost. In addition to that, I would be supportive of the funding for the software that pulls all types of data. What is it? Told-Me? Yeah, I'd be supportive of that. My team did request district-specific data to better understand the caseload per code compliance officer. This may not be a budget question, but can you help me understand, are code compliance officers equally distributed throughout each council district, or is it based upon caseload per district?
It's based on, they're distributed throughout the city based on caseload amounts. So some districts have more code officers than others. That's how we manage to distribute the workload to make sure nobody's overloaded and we get to every call when we receive it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I was asking that question because typically, like, for example, at the West End Hope and Action community meeting, right, it's right on the border of 5 and 1. And oftentimes it seems like an overwhelming amount of work. And I just want to ensure that our code officers have the support that they need. And I'm laughing because this is like a huge shift from my first budget conversation with code compliance. So I just want to ensure that they have the resources that they need and the support to ensure that they have a manageable workload in terms of the proactive and reactive code compliance cases.
We will look at that area specifically to make sure they are covered. So, but
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Amin. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Spears, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your presentations. I'm going to start with Human Services. I'm supportive of the Senior Center's extended hours, but we're on slide 7. Let me get over here. I know you were working really hard here it's a difficult climate, obviously, right? But a lot of what my colleagues have already said, I had some additional questions on. So, Head Start program, it's on page 508 in the budget book and 511. Can you talk about the in-kind contributions on that $7.9 million?
Right, so in-kind contributions for Head Start are, would be part of my time, part of other administrative times. It's also the school district facilities that we provide the program in and where the classrooms are. So we're able to, generate a value to those things and use them as in-kind. And we certify in-kind every time we submit an invoice for payment.
Okay. Okay, on slide 3.
Councilmember, if I can clarify one thing, the in-kind that you see in that grant piece, that's from the school districts. So just wanted to clarify, it's
Okay.
not city staff time, it's from the school districts that
It's from
provide
the
that.
school districts, okay. Okay, slide 3. Can you, maybe not today, articulate which of these which programs are required and which are more discretionary? I mean, there's a lot of programs that we're doing, so it may not be something we should do today, but I'd like to see that laid out more clearly for me. And then on slide 9, your performance measures dashboard, do you have the results from or what are the results-based accountability outcomes? I clicked on it and it had a huge increase on homelessness services, so I don't see that really addressed here.
Well, homelessness services will be covered in the homeless strategy and services budget presentation. For us, for the delegate agencies that we manage, that dashboard shows the performance metrics that agencies contracted to work on and what the end result is for the point in time that the dashboard looks at.
Okay, so all the other numbers on there represent the delegate agencies. Okay.
Yes.
And there's no crossover necessarily.
No, they've been separated when the department moved out of the Department of Human Services.
Okay, on slide 10, that's a lot of money, I agree. However, I do see the dramatic impact on districts 1 through 5. And I wonder if there's a way for you to ascertain which of your delegate agencies are the most effective in their return on investment, and if there's some that are, largely used. I mean, that's significant. That would really impact those districts. And I just think we've got to find who's doing the best job, which programs maybe are we could get by or someone else can do. So if we can get a more detailed breakout of that, and specifically who they're serving, and also the operational impacts that will have on your department. And then let's see. I think that's it for you. Thank you, Melody.
Thank you.
On Metro Health, thank you, Dr. Jacob, for your presentation. I really just wanted to know, are we working closely with University Health, Community First, or UT Health? Well, they're combined, but to alleviate any of the financial pressures we're experiencing?
Thank you, Council. When you say working directly, they are members of a collaborative, so the Bexar County Health Collaborative, but what exactly are you asking in terms of?
I guess I want to know more about the integration and how we're working alongside them.
Yeah, so I'm not aware of financial contributions, but we do collaborate on a number of initiatives, including the implementation of the Community Health Improvement Plan.
So I think I'd be looking at like how we can alleviate that in redundancy of effort and understanding how we're collaborating in that space, because they do a lot of things over at the county that we're doing here. And if there's redundancy or things we do better that they don't, and vice versa, we just start looking at how to do that in a better way.
Yes, we do work with them as partners on the ground, and we do look and ensure the alignment of our efforts.
Alignment of effort, okay. And this one I'm just very curious about. On page 477 of the budget book, it's the bioterrorism grant. What would be our in-kind there?
I can find out in more detail because I do see that as an allocation for the next fiscal year, so we can find out and provide that.
And do you feel confident in given how much of the budget comes from so many grants, you feel confident that we'll continue to receive the grants?
So yeah, so we have over $33 million at least for next year, and we've seen at least a leveling off back to pre-pandemic levels. So we are confident for the support that we receive for our grants.
That's good. I like that. Okay, thank you. All right, Animal Care Services. John, thank you so much for your presentation. Animal welfare is important across the city. Everybody loves their animals, but they also care a lot about being safe in the streets. I know stray animals and are a problem, huge problem. So for me, you are more inclined toward the public safety aspect. As much as we're wanting to do adoptions, I'm really very focused on making sure everyone's safe in their neighborhoods. And so let me start here. It's 339 in the budget. So I'm looking at your page 339 in the budget, And I see personnel's gone up, contractual services have gone up quite a bit. Why did they go up?
It varies. A lot of that has to do with the veterinarians that we have, as well as our partnerships that we have with providing spay neuter, and then also our rescue partners.
So we're going to be providing more spay and neuter then?
With the hospital, yes, we do anticipate spay neuter to go up about 2,000 surgeries.
Okay. That's a lot. That's good. And your insurance went up as well. Is that due to the hospital as well?
I'm not sure. on the
No,
insurance.
Councilwoman, that is our self-insurance related expenses. So that includes expenses like our IT assessment, our liability and workers' compensation type of insurance, fuel expenses in the case of ACS. We'll be happy to provide a breakout of the components of that self-insurance other category.
It went way up, so I did notice that. Okay. So I was looking to what Councilwoman Alderete Cavito brought up about the aggressive dog fee, the euthanasia fees. I saw that as part of your audit that we are going to be implementing a way to recapture that, the waiving of those euthanasia fees on the aggressive animals. Did you already figure that out, or do you have a plan or know when it'll be implemented?
Well, those fees a lot of times are waived in an effort to get the dog surrendered to us. And so it does, we work with those individuals our primary goal with those animals is to get them off the streets. And so the fees being waived for those are, in my mind, worth the cost in order to get that animal off the street. So
we're not going to be in compliance with the audit?
We will be in compliance with the audit. They're not saying that we cannot waive the fees, but so we'll be in compliance with what the audit has.
Okay, I'll just come back around for round 2. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman McKee Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for the presentations. Starting with our Department of Human Services, and I won't have any questions, I don't believe, but more so comments from my colleagues. Concentrating cuts in areas that need investment the most, I think, is a problematic way to view the budget deficit. We have tremendous disparities across the city, and in districts like mine, we're seeing higher rates of poverty and home insecurity, lower median incomes, higher temperatures, poorer air quality, poorer health outcomes, and more. And time after time, you see a split on this dais. It's those who see that we will not thrive as a community without investing in people, and those who don't see value in these programs and lack the foresight necessary to lead us through challenging decisions like this one. And I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that the vast majority of residents who will be impacted by cuts across the board will be those in districts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And as some of my colleagues continue to perpetuate the idea that we're cutting fat and trimming down, I want to remind everybody that there will be a rippling effect. We are not all things to all people, and I've heard that said from a few council members, and it's very short-sighted. We are not trying to be all things to all people. That's exactly why we support the work of nonprofit organizations and those that can help us achieve better outcomes citywide. We invest in the work of nonprofits so that they can address the concerns that we don't have the capacity and infrastructure as an organization to address. We then see a significant return on investment, not just cost-wise, but including reduced crime, reduced homelessness, higher employment, higher educational attainment, and more. You defund the nonprofits that serve our residents most in need. You then have those who don't have access to financial resources, community education opportunities, or programming, and you very quickly make a vulnerable population much more so. Then you have people who can't pay rent, can't find employment, can't afford childcare, can't buy groceries, but need to support themselves and their families, and they find themselves in situations of desperation. When we start cutting away at these programs, you will see poor outcomes down the line. And then when crime goes up because a community is hurt and vulnerable and needy but not receiving the support that they need, you're going to be asking for more police officers to police these problems away, which we see time and time again does not work. So I would remind my colleagues that these investments are not fat to be trimmed. That includes investment in Metro Health. I am concerned by some of the reductions in Metro Health in a couple areas specifically. I'll name that rates of chronic illness are not the same across the city, including diabetes, and we cannot afford to consolidate these programs with other major discussions and programs like nutrition and food access. They are distinctly separate, though there are some innate connection points. I don't see how we can be effective or efficient or even impactful with these kinds of cuts, and ultimately I think we're ultimately reducing our return on these programs by doing so. I'll also quickly advocate for the Reproductive Justice Fund. I think we have an opportunity to support organizations who are providing preventative breast and cervical cancer screenings, providing access to STI and HIV testing, treatment and prevention, as well as access to emergency contraceptives, pregnancy tests, condoms, and other health-related items. I would like to see funding restored and potentially increased. Several of these care providers are requesting a total fund of $1 million. I know that's challenging right now, but I think it's one of those areas with a significant return. Moving on to animal care services, this is one of the areas that's been a priority of mine since I was first elected in 2021. And I'm proud of the progress that we as a city have made, but we have so much more to go. We still have residents who can't walk to their mailbox without a stray dog approaching them. And we have little ladies in their houses trapped because they have a dog barking at them outside their door, of their own property. And so one of the challenges I have is that when we discuss ACS, we're working still to achieve basic service levels, such as percentage of calls answered, but even with our strategic plan, we aren't necessarily moving toward a vision, and I think that will continue to cause frustration for our residents. So we're neither striving to become a no-kill shelter, but we're also not working to make our city free of stray and roaming dogs. And so our investments in the absence of these two goals and a clear strategy to get there are leading to some progress, but ultimately the feeling that the priorities of our community are not being addressed meaningfully, and it is eroding confidence in our organization and the people who work within the department who work extremely hard. I'll add, we can't afford to slow down our investments in ACS because our problem has the opportunity to reproduce exponentially, at least initially before reaching that carrying capacity. So we need greater investment in spay and neuter services as well as pet owner education and resources. And so I will ask you to explain the redirecting of funds related to the Eastside Clinic in a bit. I want to be sure that we aren't just transferring capacity from one facility and one organization to another and reducing the ecosystem of care by relocating a partner into one of our facilities. So I'll also be looking at funding opportunities to expand the services that we can provide at this site. We lease one of the units there, and there's another unit available, and so I'll hope to have a little bit more information and a strategy by the end of this budget season, but that's something that I'm very interested in. I am thrilled to see that the veterinary hospital that my team and I championed as a part of the bond will open next year, and I think that's going to lead to many improvements as it relates to animal welfare and health outcomes across the city. And even though it's not in my district, I know that we have a responsibility to ensure that we're making investments that will have a citywide impact, and I hope that my colleagues will recognize that. I'll also flag that 10 positions at $388,000 is kind of crazy to me. $39,000 is not livable, and I think especially with departments like ACS where the stakes are high and the need is great, we need a well-compensated, well-taken care of workforce. And so I'm a little concerned about that, so I'd like to hear about that in a bit. And lastly on this issue, we funded a feasibility study for a second ACS campus. I know the assistant director and members of our leadership team were at our town hall. I asked folk to raise their hands. How many of you have been to the ACS campus in District 6? 6 or 7 people in a packed room raised their hand. And the problem is that ACS is not accessible, and I believe a second campus will go a long way in helping us eliminate our stray and roaming animal crisis, increase responsible adoptions, and increase visibility and confidence in ACS. So I will ask where we're at with that study. And then I'll move on to development services. In 2021, my very first successful budget amendment was the Streetlight Gap Index with funding to address those gaps. Because of that, we've been proactive as an organization in funding these lights where they're most needed before folk have to request it. And so I worry that this program is being cut just as we're nearing completion. And so I'd like to see this funding restored if it is in fact true that there is not funding allocated currently. And I also believe that moving from a proactive approach is counterintuitive and not the wisest. So I'd like us to revisit this strategy and this idea with this department and any other areas where we're doing the same. I do have to repeat something that I found funny a little earlier. Councilmember White said, I don't like the cuts in the neighborhood enhancement team and we need to invest more. And the reality is that as it stands with the existing tax rate proposal, this will be cut. There's no way around it. With no tax rate increase, funding really won't be restored. And so it's interesting that you can't support the funding that is going to allow us to get to this point and to fund the programs that you care about, but you also want us to cut everything else. Like, you asked for this. You asked for these cuts. That's just how the cookie crumbles when you ask staff to make tens of millions of dollars worth of cuts. You're going to see some losses that you'll find unacceptable. And so I need you to come back to the table on some actual solutions. I do want to reiterate that I cannot support any cuts to staff, and I'll add that under the current hiring freeze, we will no longer be replacing staff who leave their positions. And so by assigning duties from vacant positions to other employees, we're now increasing the workload and likely not increasing compensation fairly. And so if we cut any positions and are not filling those positions that become vacant, we'll be losing more people than we initially intended, especially in positions with higher turnover rates. And so I think this will be particularly challenging for departments like ACS. And so I just want to advise against that. I think the only department that I really had questions for were for John with ACS. So could you first address the, I guess the reallocation of funding from, or redirecting of funds from the Eastside Clinic toward the veterinary hospital, and what does filling, like how are we, who's going there into that facility, and how is that not taking capacity from what they're already doing and just moving it into our care? And then where are we at with the study on the second ACS campus?
Okay, first, the redirecting those funds, it actually is now that the partner agency will be operating that clinic. The hospital mandate required a certain amount of increased staffing, and so rather than having to operate that clinic and then still have that $1.12 million in additional staffing and meds and contracts, we were able to use that funding that we were using at the East Clinic. The partner that we work with will be running be fully operating that East Clinic, and actually probably be able to provide even more services than what we were able to provide, just because they specialize in doing that. So actually, we should see an increase in services by moving that $1.12 million to that hospital to increase services there on our campus, and then having this partner run that other clinic will also. That clinic will have increased services due to their capabilities are greater than ours.
I guess to make that simple, are they hiring more people to take on the operation of this clinic, or are they relocating their services from an existing facility that they already operate out of, and it is now just happening in ours?
No, their plan is going to be to operate both, the one that they're currently in and the one that they're taking on with us.
Okay. And then lastly, the study?
We're right now in the process of we did the RFP. We're in the process of working with the vendor to finalize an agreement for it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. On the second round, Councilmember Galvan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple questions for DSD. Can we get a follow-up on the vacant building case rates within FY 2026? I know we moved that work into DSD. Just wanted to see what that work's been like over the last year. On the neighborhood enforcement teams, could you remind me, is this a separate team from the regular kind of code officers that we have in each district?
Which team, I'm sorry?
The neighborhood enforcement teams?
So the neighborhood enforcement team, specifically for the sweeps, we have 4 code officers that they do the 20 sweeps and the 4 special sweeps in the year. And again, if we do eliminate 2 positions, we are reducing the 20 sweeps to 2 sweeps. So each district will get 2 sweeps every year, 1 residential and 1 commercial.
Got it. But I guess my question was, is that separate from the standard coode officers?
They are special team standard from the area officers. That is correct.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And then, do you have any vacancies within our standard code teams
We have
per district, I guess?
We have total of 8 vacancies throughout code enforcement. Do we have any? No, we have 8 total, but are they all area officers? 6 area officers.
Okay, got it. Okay. And the only other question I had was on the Senior Assistance Fund, if we could get some data on the usage of it in 2026 and just see if there's any discrepancies there between different districts, of course, utilizing it more. I think we've seen that past couple years, right? And so wondering if there's any look at addressing or assessing those needs a bit differently this year. And a little bit more too, if there's any kind of detail we can get on that about what kind of cases are being addressed. I think largely they've been overgrown grass, things like that. Any dollar amounts associated there. And then in particular, I guess, how many qualifying individuals who received a citation to then go into this program were able to fully get assisted? Is any kind of like, did funds run out after they got the citation? Were there any people who were left out of that program who then could not use it anymore? Or have all those folks who were cited, qualified for it, able to get the assistance? I guess is my ultimate question.
So the Senior Assistant Fund, they are not required to get a citation, but they need to have a violation. So if there is a violation and we issue a notice of violation, and then they qualify for the program, we do help them at that point.
Okay.
I think what you're talking about is the Code Compliance Assistant Fund. That's another fund that we have. It's very small. It's about $15,000. That one is they need to get a citation and then go before the judge, the administrating hearing officer, and then at that point we will help them out with that $15,000. But the Senior Assistant Fund is they don't need to get a citation, but they need to have a violation.
Okay, got it. And I guess still in that vein, though, if they get the violation and the fund is expired, has there been any cases like that in where the fund is expired already, but they're not able to receive any kind of support after the violation's been?
So far, I think we are getting close to that now. We are down to about 1,500 left out of the 100,000. So right now we have about 9 cases, 9 applicants who applied. And before we authorize any of them, we need to make sure we still have the money. So we have about 1,500. I think we can do maybe 2 of them with that amount, and the rest we're going to have to pause till next year.
Got it. Okay. Just wondering about some details there. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Is there any other information that you have on that?
We'll provide details.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last couple of questions. Of course, I want to echo Councilor Castillo's question about some of the programs we have on maternal health and reproductive and sexual health programs here in our city. I know we've talked about different ones, the Community Health Committee as well. I think overall, Claude, if you can give us a kind of list of some of those programs, comprehensively how much participants they serve, the total funding allocated towards those ones, that's including STI prevention or STI support, along with any kind of like maternal family health, like the Healthy Start and WIC programs as well. I think that should be helpful to have that kind of more detailed information on demographic data. Some of it I think is out there in the presentations, but I want to be able to compile it just a little bit easier for myself. Would that be possible?
Yes, we can pull that together for you.
Okay. And if you have any questions, let me know if there's any ones that I may need to be more clear on which ones I'm looking for. Thank you. Last question for DHS. Can you follow up with some information on the Project Worth expansion, what that program is going to look like and what's changing? I know you mentioned a little bit at the Youth Town Hall, but wanted to see if we can get some more detailed information in a follow-up as well.
Sure. So what we're doing is training SAISD counselors to work with students during the school day on emotional support, social emotional needs, as decision-making, leadership, all to the point of reducing violent activities, reducing teen dating violence, and those kind of challenges.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Alderete Gavito.
Thank you. I had a few more questions, but first I did want to address something because, as Councilman McKee Rodriguez said, some of us say we can't be all things to all people. Yeah, our city budget is not supposed to be all things to all people. To me, it's really frustrating that, we have some of my colleagues up here talking about housing affordability or living affordability, but at the same time, willing to raise property taxes on folks. We need to make it make sense. And so, I agree that some of these cuts disproportionately impact districts 1 through 5, but to me, the only way we're going to get out of this budget crisis is two ways. One is to raise property taxes, or two is to really invest in economic development. And to me, we have to double down in economic development and our economic outcomes as a city, because we'll be back in the same spot in 3 or 5 years of having to raise taxes, and then people are really going to feel the hurt then. Couple of other quick questions. John Gary, I left off on ACS. I know that the fees that were increased, I believe we just got some feedback that Arlington has a fee, give me 2 seconds, of I think it was $500 for a dangerous dog. And so I think ours was $150 or something like that. I'm trying to, yeah. Fort Worth charges $500 per year for a dangerous dog. Is there a reason we're not charging that much?
That amount would surpass our cost to recover.
So we're just looking at it by cost to recover?
Yes, we're not allowed to charge more than what it costs to provide that service.
Okay. How are they able to get away with that?
I'm not sure about that.
It'd be interesting to look into what Fort Worth is doing and seeing why they're able to charge $500 for a dangerous dog. I mean, I don't know that the difference would be that much. You know, so if we can look into that, and so we can hike up the fees on the behaviors that we don't want to see in our city. We don't want dangerous dogs out. I mean, a resident just got attacked in Monticello from 2 dangerous dogs that got out, attacked a guy walking his dog, and then some other guy got attacked as well. And so, yeah, I mean, we definitely don't want these dangerous dogs in our community. So if we can look into that, that'd be helpful. And then we also have some stats about Arlington, how they charge $58 a year per license, which is the state minimum, but they also pay $200 up. The person has to pay $200 up front and $55 for each inspection for 4 times a year. So they're definitely recovering a lot of costs, which I think we should double down on. Also, too, on code, thank you, John Gary. For DSD, I do agree with a couple of my colleagues. I think Councilman White had called it out too, about cutting the neighborhood enhancement team. That would be detrimental to all of our districts, districts 1 through 10. We know that proactive sweeps are crucial. We know that our residents rely on these proactive sweeps, so we definitely would want to keep them. And also, too, I know that we talked about vacant structures, and I know Councilwoman Castillo and I are working on vacant residential buildings and vacant property business buildings, and definitely want us to continue exploring hiking up the fees on those. These vacant structures become toxic in neighborhoods. They cause a lot of activity we don't want to see in our neighborhoods. So again, if we can increase the fines to deter that behavior, then that's something we should explore doing. Those are all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kaur, please.
Thank you so much. I wanted to reiterate support for the Reproductive Justice Fund. If we can increase it at least at the same amount that was first initiated by Councilman Castillo a couple years ago. I also wanted to reiterate my support for the Streetlight program. We increased that last year and have made really significant progress. So I'd like to see if you could provide in a memo how many lights we've been able to accomplish with that increased funding and what this pause is for and why, and how we would be able to address at least the ones that we know are easy to install, solar, or haven't had any negative opposition based on the entire list that you have. So you can provide that in a follow-up memo. For the rest of DSD comments, if you could go to slide 10 on the code presentation, or on the DSD presentation. So this statistic of completed within 45-day compliance rate of 90% is a little misleading because we have no idea which categories those are. For example, graffiti abatement, we know we are really good at that and we can complete that in a day. So just judging, and I've kind of mentioned this too when we talked about permitting at PCDC, you have to break down your work in different categories and show us the results in those different categories, because I know for a fact that we are not at a 90% compliance rate in District 1 because we track how long our cases go. like cars in front of lots and things like that. So I'd like for you guys to send me the compliance rate broken up by different categories and actual targets by different categories. Because yes, graffiti abatement should be 100%. Grass, when we send violations for grass, that should be 100% compliance. But not all of those things are at that rate. And I think those outliers are inflating this number, which from what we have seen in DSD cases is not the right goal that we're setting. On slide 11, I wanted to I just want y'all to see this is why DSD, Public Works and DSD are my two top calls. Look at this. Look at we are at 1,700 cases in I'm assuming that's what this is because there's no title to that chart. This is cases addressed?
Yes, that is correct. In FY25?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you look at FY25 and already at FY26, we have a significant amount of DSD calls that we are getting and tracking on a daily basis. And so the reduction of code enforcement officers for this is really concerning to me. I would like to see a breakdown of who is assigned for which district. I know Councilman Castillo mentioned that. And I'd like to make sure I better understand how code officers are being trained and supported to ensure that they do not have too many cases on theirs, but also how many they are addressing. So I'd like to, you can remove the names, but just say, how are code officers addressing concerns and how are they getting to a good amount of caseload? Go ahead, you were going to say something?
So, yeah, I just want to clarify, this table is very specific to the sweeps that we are doing. So this is all proactive. This is not calls that we get through 311. This is proactive cases when we do those sweeps. We talked about the 20 sweeps.
That's what I was wondering because it was so let's put headings on our tables as we present just so we know. But for that, I'd also like to see what the overall code cases look like across the entire district and how many officers are assigned. We have our favorite code officer, Stephen, who I always mention, who is literally at every Los Angeles Heights meeting. He is so good about responding to emails. He never leaves us unread. And we want to make sure that we can get that kind of level of service from all of our code officers. And what is our plan to ensure we are using him as an exemplar to train or supervise the rest of the officers that we have so that we're getting that same response rate for our constituents. Really quickly, I wanted to show the short-term rental slide. I don't know if that's on backup already pulled up. Justina, were you able to upload it to, okay. Can y'all just pull that for community because we got a call about this. And this just shows you why the short-term rental rates are going up. This is the amount of calls that SAPD has had to service in fiscal year, or I guess that should be fiscal year 26, but that's the projected for fiscal year 27, I guess. It's 172,000 calls. And so the one thing that I want to say is this is why the costs are going up. I know there's going to be some questions we'll discuss at our budget town hall tonight. But at the same time, when I call SAPD and I'm saying, have you talked to the STR person at DSD to know that you've been out to this address 12 times? And the answer was no. So the communication between SAPD and DSD in terms of when they're going out, it's 3 violations. But if an officer is not actually giving a violation, that's never going to get to our short-term rental compliance program. So we have to make sure there's better communication with that. And I just had one last quick thing. Sorry, I know my time's up. But for the proactive inspection, active inspection program, we have a major issue with several apartment complexes in District 1. And I've asked for numbers of fines of how much they've been charged and how much they've paid. The last memo you all sent me did not include how much they were charged and how much they actually have paid. Because if they're not paying anything, us continuing to give fines isn't going to get us any impact. So I would just like to see that. Thanks, Mayor.
Great, thank you.
Mayor, may I?
Yes, please.
Councilwoman Kaur, I just wanted to clarify on that backup slide that we showed, the 172,000 is the cost associated with the SAPD calls. The total number of calls was 3,194 based on fiscal year 2025 annual data.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Villagran.
Thank you. Can you pull up slide number 9 for a DSD? I wanted to talk about garage sales because I think this is one opportunity, and I constantly get calls on District 3 about people. As I'd like to see if we could do the technology where maybe we have the residents purchase their 3 garage sales and then get their 4th all at once, maybe for like 10% off or something at the beginning of the year. And then that way I could, through newsletters or C&E could send out, hey, first quarter is ending. If you bought your year-long garage sale permits, it's time to use them. Because I think this would help code officers because they would have a list of people that have permits that are able to do it in the quarter. And then just trying to activate them to make sure they only use it that one quarter, but having them purchase it outright. The other thing that I think we need to talk about, probably in economic workforce and development, and maybe even planning, and then maybe, or bring it to a B session, is our vendors that like to be on the side of the road. And this is from the people selling wood to the people selling T-shirts. What sort of permitting they have, because that is primarily a cash or a cash app only business, and just wanting to make sure that we're kind of making them get a garage sale permit too. I have one location where they set up like 2 stalls full of things, and it's, you know, that's just things where I would prefer them to go to the flea market or go to Trader's Village or find something to do that there, but they're on the side of my roads causing traffic problems all along Military Drive. So I want to look at that where we talk garage sale permits. And then, because I'm constantly trying to think of ways to get more funding, Maria, when Parks comes up, I would like to see, I know that there's a number of parking violations within the parks, maybe see what, if we could get community input that it's like, yes, raise those violations for people that are doing X, Y, and Z. I think that would be fine. So I know we can go online or we can go to HEB to get our garage sale permits. But if you told me I could buy all my garage sale permits at once and get my 4th one free, I would do that. And I just need to be reminded to pick a date to have that garage sale. So because I have a neighbor every weekend. She is having a garage sale. So, but I don't call her in because she's my neighbor. But no.
So may I respond to some of that? So if you purchase 3 garage sales throughout the year, you get the 4th one for free, even if you don't do it all at once. So that's already in place. But we will look into if somebody can purchase all of them at the same time. We will look into that. In regards to garage sales, that is specifically for residential people who wants to sell some of the stuff they have. But what you're talking about with the other one is, I call it peddler's permit, where they just potentially they might put new stuff to sell, new product to sell. That is not a garage sale, that's a peddler's permit. And we are trying to crack down on that as much as we can. But obviously we're not catching all of them.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And what I do want to see is, in terms of, I guess, the peddler's permit, and see if this session we get anything from, I know we're not having the only problem. I'm pretty sure other big Texas cities are having the same problem. So I'm seeing if there's going to be anything coming from the state level before we create policy in San Antonio, and then the state tells us we can't do that. So I'll be monitoring that to work with that, because if we keep on making playoffs, we're going to keep on having peddlers. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Spears.
Thank you, Mayor. Where was I? Okay, back to you, John. So I want to triple down, I guess, with my colleagues about the slide 10, a breakdown by district. Yes. I do think that we should be charging higher fees on the dangerous dogs, and I just want to see that be the top priority, getting those dangerous dogs off the street so people can walk around in their neighborhoods safely. Can you also articulate the nonprofits? Does that cost us anything for them to operate at our facility?
We do have contracts with nonprofits that we do pay for things like spay-neuter services, as well as we pay them for our to pull animals from us as well. We have contracts with them where we actually pay a fee for them to pull animals from the shelter.
That's so confusing to me, but that seems so backwards, because then they're going to turn around and sell the dog. So, okay, I'd also like to see where there's more spay and neuter clinics around, or where we're going to put more of those spay and neuter clinics. I don't know that District 9 is even really aware of any. That's what I hear from feedback on. But to me, that's going to be the most effective thing we can do, is just a lot of spay and neuter, and I support that. I think that's it. But thank you. It's important work. Development Services, Amin, thank you so much for your presentation. You're going to hear a lot more of the same probably from me. Short-term rentals. So I know that a lot of this, and this came up at my town hall about the short-term rental fee increase. Will that fee increase then go to SAPD, since that's what it's supplementing, or stay at DSD?
No, it will stay at DSD. We are responsible to issue the permits and
Actually, I mean, if I may, so the cost that we are recovering, Councilwoman, is three components. So we have the inspectors and code enforcement, we have the permitting team in the Development Services Fund, and in the general fund, we have the police component, as well as in the finance department, those individuals that do the registration. So the revenue that we are charging is going to be divided between the Development Services Fund and the general fund.
Okay, good. Can you tell me too, Amin, what the current balance of unpaid fees from the dangerous premise cleanup is on slide 9, and the vacant lots? Did you already ask that, Marie? Or do we have any unpaid? I'm just wondering, like, here's my concern. Repeat offenders. I feel like we should scale it. The more they do it, and they go and they pay their fee, and then they just do it again, like, unacceptable. We should hit them harder, because it's consequences that will deter that. And that's what I have going on in my district a lot. So is there a way to remedy that?
Yes, ma'am. So this fee here is the administration fee. So anytime we send our contractor to abate a property or clean it, we add today we add the $250 as an admin fee for us to do the paperwork and keep up with it. We are asking to move it to $300. Now, if they do violate the code every time, we do issue citations for them, and those citations are administrative hearing citations. The first one is $300, the next one is $500, and then $1,000 after that. So it does go in an increment.
Can we make those higher?
That's a city attorney's office question.
Well, I mean, it's just not working enough. There's a lot of people that just don't care, and they'll just go through the system, pay the fees, and they just don't care. And that's what I'm seeing, and never remedy the situation.
So, Councilwoman Savita Rai with the City Attorney's Office, there is a maximum amount that the statute, the Texas State statute in this case, Chapter 54, the Local Government Code, sets the maximum that we as a city can charge, either through the administrative hearing officer or a maximum for the Class C misdemeanor cases.
So we can't do this outside of the citation once the citation's issued?
The quick answer, no, we have to comply with the strict terms of the statute and what it allows the city to do.
Okay. I'll have to follow up with some questions. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Munguia, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I mean, can you come up here real quick? I didn't get enough time with you last time. Can you talk about the street lights situation? Is there funding for new street lights in this upcoming budget?
At this time, we don't have funding for additional street lights in the upcoming budget, but we have installed so far 1,467 lights, and we have 87 in the pipeline to be installed. So that equates to 1,554 lights.
Gotcha. That's good for me. I support having money for streetlights. I don't understand why last year and this year that was being proposed as a cut. Because as we go around to residents, right, they constantly talk about lighting in the street. And even when I hope you all realize, right, when we finish our streetlight gap, whenever that is, we're going to have to revisit the UDC and talk about increasing the standard for lighting because the existing code doesn't meet the community expectations. So if I was to go to my residents and say, guys, we're not going to fund any street lights this year, they would really question me and what we were doing. So I echo my colleagues who support putting that back in some capacity, especially because now more than ever it's easier with solar lights that we have the contract with to install lighting, and we don't have to get the right-of-way acquisition. So I think it's even easier now to install street lights, and so I just don't understand why we would take away funding for street lights. That seems like a core city service. So, but no, you don't have to, yeah, good.
Councilman, I just wanted to provide some context. In the past, when we've added funding to install streetlights, that has been funded out of the capital budget. And this year, given our capacity in the capital budget, we did not recommend an allocation for streetlights installation.
So we've done streetlights with debt, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. So again, I think most of us were interested in the conversation about increasing our debt capacity for many different reasons. So I would certainly ask us to revisit that in light of getting more lights for our community. And then I'll just add real quick, I do support, my colleagues have mentioned some funding maybe allocated to some healthcare providers that focus on women's health, maternal health. I support that also. I think that that's very important given the state of affairs here locally. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Mesa Gonzalez, please.
Hi, thank you. Quick question. On the DHS budget, I forgot to ask, there's a capital outlay. I think there's going from 194 in 26 to 903, 903,000, excuse me. If only it was $903. Just didn't know what that was for.
Sure. The increase is due to additional computers that are being replaced than what we had last year. So they're on a 4 to 5 year schedule. So we just have more replacements in fiscal year 2027 than we did in 2026 for DHS.
Thank you.
Councilmember Castillo, please.
Thank you. A couple of just follow-up points. I wanted to be sure, since we're shouting out code compliance officers, Marcus Barber is a phenomenal code officer, and I know community members in District 5 are always very receptive to the information that he's sharing, and he's very educational in terms of why there's a violation and the expectation of compliance and what that looks like. So I'm grateful for him and all the folks that work in District 5. I did have something for staff to consider in terms with the fee increase for the garage sales. If there's opportunity to increase from 2 to 3 of the stickers where the signage that folks, when you purchase the permit, you're issued 2 stickers to put on signs to say yard sale here. I think if y'all can consider increasing it to 3 stickers, I think there'd be a lot of value there for residents who are going to be paying more for a garage sale. And then in terms of the data for citywide code compliance cases with confirmed violations, I see within the top 5 is alleyway maintenance. I know in District 5, that's why we've advocated for alleyway maintenance funds, because that is a top issue. But I'm curious if there's opportunity, and this may be beyond the budget, to explore how many, what is the estimated cost associated with alleyway maintenance, and is there value in exploring with potentially selling that alley to some of the abutting property owners? I know I have residents that have said, hey, if I'm responsible for the overgrown vegetation and or litter in the alley, like, why can't I just own it or move my fence, right? So I think there's value to potentially reduce the cost associated with alleyway maintenance if there are blocks that are interested in purchasing that alleyway and taking full ownership, since they are held accountable for, again, litter and overgrown vegetation. So I just want to be sure that that's something that we can explore, whether it's through a council consideration request and or something we can see within PCDC to see what that impact and potential cost savings would be there. And then lastly, again, just wanted to reiterate in case I didn't, the Reproductive Justice Fund ask that has been made. And those are my last comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Just confirming, Councilman McKeown Rodriguez on the second round? No? Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this item? Okay. Thank you again, Maria, the entire staff, for all of the very hard work, these very challenging conversations here. I'd like to start with ACS, please. Jean-Gary, on the I agree with my colleague, Councilwoman Spears. A key part of this is understanding how much spay and neuter we can do to alleviate, unfortunately, the number of, well, one, the safety issue, but then also just the number of animals that have to be euthanized. So I know the target for FY27 is 42,000. How do we know that's a good target?
Well, we're basing that off of what we have the capacity to do here. So that capacity, it is. You know, we do more spay and neuter than anywhere else in the country here in San Antonio, but there is a capacity issue for the number of veterinarians that we have available to us, and so that number is kind of based off that, what capacity-wise we believe we can accomplish.
Okay, so that number is based on the capacity of the number of veterinarians that we can employ to do this work?
That's correct.
Okay. Do we have analysis that shows us what would be the actual number, though, if we wanted to affect the trajectory in our community of animals? Do we know what that number would actually be of spay and neuter that we'd have to accomplish?
We don't.
Okay.
I think that that's something that shelters and organizations all across the country struggle with, but so we don't know an exact number, no.
Okay. Well, I'd welcome some analysis that helps us understand, because this is at some point, it's a resource issue, right, as you well know. So understanding and helping us just understand the right number is 75K, the right number is 80K to really, to affect this.
Yeah, David asked me to mention we are in the process, you know, of having another free roaming dog study. You know, we did one back in 2019 that said there's 34,000. We have now are in the process now of working on an agreement with a company that will be actually coming to council in the very near future to do another one of those analysis. So that should actually give us a better idea of whether or not what we're doing, whether we're making progress. Right? Is it still 34,000? Is it higher, or have we seen a reduction?
I want to make sure I understood what you just said. You said having another clinic to do free spay and neuter is going to help us understand our progress?
No, we're in the process of working on a free roaming dog study where they'll actually go through and do a study in our community about the number of free roaming dogs that we have. That study will allow us to compare to the one we did in 2019 that said 34,000 animals. And that will also show that whether or not our efforts in spay and neuter and the other efforts we're doing are making an impact or not.
Okay. I look forward to understanding that. I mean, just for everyone's context, and again, this is probably an issue I get the most emails on, if not the second item. But the cost to euthanize versus the cost to spay and neuter, what is the difference?
It's definitely cheaper to euthanize than it is to spay and neuter, right? You're paying a veterinarian, you're paying a staff to do the surgery, so it is cost more to spay and neuter than it does to euthanize. I will say, the reason why spay and neuter is such a bit more beneficial than over euthanizing is, one, you're saving the life of the animal, but two, you're making a long-term impact on the number of animals living in the community, where if we just went to the old mentality of capture and euthanize, it would solve nothing. It would just continue to habituate out in the community.
Okay. I would like some analysis that helps us understand what is a number that is going to affect the trajectory in our community. I mean, how many of the target, the 42,000, how many of those are those all paying customers, or how much of that is completed free of charge based on the person's socioeconomic status?
So I have to get that number for you. We offer free spay neuters at both of our offsite clinics, as well as we have a certain number that are available. Some of those numbers are also animals that are being spay neutered within at ACS for adoption, return to owner, and those things too.
Okay. If that is, if that is the resource constraint that would actually help us, I mean, if there is again, that's why that analysis of understanding how many do we need to complete in our community to affect the trajectory, is the cost benefit actually just higher for us to go ahead and make a certain percentage of those free, right? Kind of irrespective of the individual's ability to pay, just because we know the return on investment is so much higher, both in terms of what you have to deal with, unfortunately, on the euthanize side, but also on the public safety side. So I'd welcome some analysis before the end of this budget season to help us understand what more we could do in this. Thank you. Amin, please. Just a few questions for you. On the used auto parts license, that went from 1,000 to 5,000. It's a significant jump, one, but it also puts us out of alignment with the other large cities. How did you arrive at that number?
So as I mentioned in my presentation, we were tasked to do a cost recovery analysis on the program. So we looked at it. We do have a supervisor and 2 code officers who respond and do monthly inspections on those locations for metal recycling facilities and used auto parts. So when we added the cost for them and a little bit for administration cost on top, it ended up to be a lot higher. Actually, even the 5,000 will not get us exactly at 100%.
Okay. When you also compared it, though, to the other cities, that was significantly higher than what they're charging.
Mayor,
go ahead.
As we hit a violation on our metal recyclers, we have a different cadence that our officers visit. So once a violation is received by one of these metal recyclers, there are daily visits, midday visits, end-of-day visits. So we're really trying to bring them into compliance because of their impact on the neighborhoods. So that cadence sets us apart from those other cities, which is why the cost of service model is different.
Okay, that's helpful context. Thank you. And now, is that the same then for the metal recyclers license, which is similarly almost much higher than other cities?
Correct. Many of these locations have both of those licenses. It just has to do with the type of material they're recycling. So that's the reason that it's across both of them.
Okay. I wanted to, as we think about kind of the second and third, some intended, some unintended consequences of some of these, when you're talking about a used auto parts reseller, right? By having such a high fee, obviously we want them to be compliant. Of course, that's the behavior that we want. But if we're having such a high fee, my concern is that we put some of these folks out of business. The very kinds of providers that are providing something in our community that need entities at that level. If you're not buying a used item, you're having to buy a new item, which is arguably much more expensive. So I want to make sure I understand the cost recovery model, but I want to make sure we understand the intended consequences, potential consequences on these providers, given certainly the affordability crisis right now, but we certainly don't want to put any businesses out of business as a result of the charges.
Understood.
Yeah, okay.
Mayor,
Yep.
absolutely. We want to be open for business in San Antonio, no argument there. I think that there has been a renewed emphasis on these businesses, and so we're trying to find the balance of neighborhood protection and a reasonable fee that cost recovers for us. So that's where we've landed this year. We'll continue to look at it. If there continues to be violations from these companies, we're going to ramp up enforcement, and the number may go up next year, right, just to be really clear. So we're trying to make sure that we protect neighborhoods, and there's been a lot of work by some of the folks on this body to get us where we are today. So.
Appreciate that. Thanks, John. On human services and health, obviously these are quite related. When I was looking at some of the unfortunate reductions, it also just kind of big picture, Maria, welcome how we're understanding how we're doing this. So for example, when we look at on health, when Melody presented, and when we look, for example, at domestic violence, so in the budget book, it's page 467, we make an estimate of the number and percentage of domestic violence survivors receiving case management. So in FY26, we think that's going to be, FY26, we expect that to be 2,300. Oh, thanks, Dr. Jacob. 2,300, that being 25%. And then in FY27, we anticipate that same number, 2,300, but that percentage only being 20% of the caseload. So based on that, we're expecting a 25% increase in the number and percentage of domestic violence survivors receiving case management. Is that correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
Okay. That's a significant assumption, and certainly one we want to resource for, but certainly has implications as well for police and our funding to delegate agencies, et cetera, et cetera. How are we thinking about, I mean, that's like if we are in our community are expecting a 25% increase in the number and percentage of domestic survivors receiving case management, how can we, I'm not sure if you have an answer right now, but how we are communicating that to all the other stakeholders across the city for whom would be responding to that, addressing it, and of course the other community stakeholders that would have a response piece to that. That's significant. If you want to speak to it now, otherwise we'll look for a follow-on response. But those kinds of big assumptions, I want to make sure that we're laying those flat across all planning. You know, certainly is police accounting for that kind of response? Are we talking with our medical providers with that kind of increase in our community? That's kind of how we're level setting across is important. If you'd like to say something, or Maria, if you'd like to comment.
Sure, Mayor, just very briefly. We are part of the City-County Collaborative on Domestic Violence, so we work closely with law enforcement agencies, not just the City of San Antonio, but also Bexar County nonprofit providers and the medical field as well. So we share the challenges, we share the data, so we stay pretty engaged with the ecosystem that provides services to our community.
Yeah, and that's super helpful. I think, though, when we are making resource decisions as a city on things related to domestic violence, if your operating assumption is we're going to see a 25% increase in this, then we need to be looking at that in other areas as well. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Dr. Jacob, when we talk about, and I was looking at your chart as well, the number of vaccinations administered by the immunizations program, we see a decrease by a third from what we were providing in FY25. FY25 was 15,325. FY27 target is 10,000. Is that based on what we are resourcing for, or is that based, there's certainly, I know there's been, unfortunately, a bit of a decrease in requests for vaccinations, but can you speak to what is the drop based on purely our resourcing?
Yes.
Okay.
You may be familiar with some of the cuts that we've seen with federal grants. So we're adjusting. We did last year make a commitment to make sure we reallocated some capacity to maintain our immunization clinic. But just in general, there are different components. That's why we see at least a minor drop to the numbers that we'll be administering for the next fiscal year.
Okay, and that's helpful. Thank you. How are we then, you know, as we're looking at some of the other things that we fund in our community, some through the human services space, how are we understanding what a third of a decrease in our funding for immunizations could mean in other areas in the public health space?
Yeah, as you can imagine, it's a moving target. We're paying attention over the last year and a half to some of the fiscal disruptions, whether it's our staffing capacity or reallocating resources. We are seeing, at least on the grant side, a return to pre-pandemic levels. We did experience substantial investment and growth during the pandemic for a few years, and that's leveled off. And so in terms of the impacts of the other units, we're still paying attention and assessing to what that means to minimize the disruption of services for area residents.
Okay, so to the idea of we don't quite yet understand what a third of a decrease in immunizations conducted through this community would mean. I'm not comfortable taking that reduction, and for my amendment, I want to make sure that we are, because that's through the general fund, correct? That decrease? I want to make sure.
Mayor, that is, the performance metrics reflect all funding sources,
Yes.
including grants.
Yes.
So I just wanted to clarify for the vaccinations that you are mentioning in fiscal year 25, we did 15,000.
Right.
And we had an estimate for 26 of 9,000, and we're estimating 10,000 the following year.
Yeah.
We'll clarify, but I think that has to do with our ARPA grants that were one-time
Sure.
funding.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Justine.
Yeah.
So in 2025, we had about $5.3 million of vaccine-related grants. That the Immunization and Vaccines for Children program, which was a CDC bridge grant, we no longer have that.
Right.
So that's the difference between fiscal year 2025 and fiscal year 2026 and 27.
Yeah, and I certainly appreciate, for me though, kind of irrespective of where the money is coming from, if do we have an understanding of the risks associated with us performing a third less immunizations in our community, and if that is something that we in fact have to, in your medical judgment, public health judgment, is in the best interest of our community to actually go identify general fund dollars, right, irrespective of where the money comes from. If we, from a public health standpoint, understand should there to be benefit in continuing at that level, then I would welcome having a conversation with my colleagues about how we would backfill that. But that's certainly based on your professional judgment, Dr. Jacob, about whether or not that's in the best public health interest of the community.
Thank you, Mayor. Just the broader context, obviously, the core function is about mitigating the spread of disease and injury. And so we are paying attention to national outbreaks, local outbreaks. So to your point, again, we're acknowledging at least a funding stream, but our task is making sure that we reallocate resources where necessary to mitigate any outbreaks here locally.
Yeah, understood. I mean, I'm not a public health expert, but I think we all recognize that this is one of those things that we don't have enough support in terms of surveillance and awareness. And this is something, as we all, unfortunately remember COVID quite well, this is something that quickly can surpass our capacity to respond and address. So in the interest of immediate and long-term public health, I'd like to explore us making sure that we're funding that at an appropriate level. And Dr. Jacob, I'd welcome, if your understanding of that is what the higher number was, 15,000 in FY25, then we fund to that.
Mayor, if I may,
please.
we can include this in the follow-up memo, but what you see in the budget document are the vaccines performed by our
us.
Metro Health.
Right.
We will provide the larger ecosystem in the city to kind of give you an idea of what other entities are doing community-wide.
Very helpful. Thank you. And I just because there's obviously been a lot of discussion by district here, would welcome kind of who is receiving most of those things, those services by district. Thank you.
Okay.
Actually, Dr. Jacob, the federal grant for the Healthy Texas Mothers and Babies, I understand in FY25 that was 70,000. In FY26 and 27 that was only 35,000. Can you give us a sense of what the impact of that decreased funding is?
Yes, I could. We'll get you the details about that. Again, just looking at what page is that exactly?
472.
Okay, got it. Okay. Oh, 1 second.
So the total amount for that grant is 85,000, and it's been at 85,000. It's just the difference in the state and federal funding.
Sure. Yeah, no, and this is, thank you for that, Justina, very helpful. This gets to kind of the same point, though, that I'm making, which is irrespective of where the funding is lost, and because when there are the consequences of these things not in our community, that falls on us, and that falls on the local providers to respond to that. So I think it's important that we recognize there's a decrease in the funding. I think we need to understand what the impact is, and then we make a decision about whether we want to absorb that risk or not, thereby identifying potential other sources to fund these things, right? Whether we, if able, are able to tap more into the 1115 Medicaid waiver or elsewhere, because right now we've done, it's really just a numbers exercise, but we need a much stronger articulation of, and I think you've heard it in my colleagues' comments, we do want to understand the risks associated with some of these things, and then of course how we can mitigate those, and that's unfortunately, that's just a resource issue. Yeah, okay. So I look forward to understanding how the decrease in the funding for the Healthy Texas Mothers and Babies program, what that has meant in our community. Again, we're talking about this $35,000. I mean, this is...
Mayor,
yes,
if I
go
may,
ahead.
I just want to clarify, there's no decrease in the funding for the Healthy Texas Mothers and Babies. The amount is the same, it's just the allocation is different. So we got more money from the state and less money from the federal government, but the $85,000 is the same as it was last year.
So when we look on page 472, okay. Different than, okay. So we are plussing up as a result of the decreased, Okay, thank you. Thank you. If we were able to do more, though, right, I'd welcome understanding that. We're not talking about a lot of money, but the impacts are significant. And of course, I think a lot of attention on that piece in light of the program that is being defunded. Okay. The $2 million that we're providing to the University of Texas at San Antonio is the public health program, which is, I know we're in the last year of providing that $2 million, which is positioning, quote, Metro Health to be recognized as an academic health department. What does that mean exactly?
Yes, this is, again, a 5-year commitment that we have to establishing the Cape Marmion School of Public Health now in its 3rd year with the 3rd cohort. The designation of an academic health department is not a formal designation, it's a practice. So we have formal agreements, MOAs, MOUs with academic institutions that include the Cape Marmion School of Public Health. So it's a way that we collaborate with our academic partners. We've benefited immensely by having not only interns come to our department, but also putting in requests to subject matter experts and faculty to do the work, to augment our work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. I saw that we have fewer oral health clinics in school-based settings. 2025, we had 459. Our target in 27 is going to be 377, which is almost a 20% increase. Is that also just a funding issue?
It was the timing of executing the contracts. Again, this is, the lion's share of it is supported by the Medicaid 1115 waiver.
Yeah.
And so now we have at least a commitment to sustain the entire support for the oral health program. But at that time, the community partners, a few of them wanted to at least commit to the screening activities. But the work continues. It's just that our Metro Health target, the number of clinics has dropped a bit.
Okay.
Just to clarify a little bit, the community work is still being done. It's just being, we have less contracts, but the partners are still doing the work.
Sure, we're just doing less of it.
Right.
Right. Which is a result of decreased funding. Is that correct, or
Well, the
is
funding
there?
is through the Medicaid 1115 waiver.
Got it. Thank you.
There was a question earlier in the spring about that funding. We've now secured for the next 3 fiscal years.
Got it. Thank you. So on this example, the 459 that we were doing in 225, it's the same level of service being provided. We're just providing less toward that.
Fewer clinics.
Fewer clinics.
So, but that work is still ongoing with the support of our other community providers. This is the metrics specific to Metro Health.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But is it, I guess at the end of the day, is it fewer kids that we are serving?
No.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. I saw in your metrics the number of 9/11 mental health calls that the SA core team responds to. In FY26, it looks like 5,800. In FY27, the target is just 5,000, which is about a 13% decrease. Can you explain why that is?
Yes, Mayor. Hi, Jessie Higgins, Chief Mental Health Officer. So we've kept the target kind of similar, even though our actuals this year have been higher. It's because we were looking at doing different options in 911 and also with the diversion center. We're interested if those things might change the actual landscape and how many calls get sent to an actual response by a team. So we didn't want to increase it, even though we had seen an increase in this year, if the landscape might actually change through those different ideas that we were working on when we submitted these metrics.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, Jessie. I think on something so significant, though, mental health instances as it relates to public safety, I think we'd want to see some data first, that some of those approaches were working and having the intended effect before we take that off, just because we've unfortunately seen too many unfortunate and needless circumstances as a result of that. So I think my amendment would be that we fund it to what we had initially?
Yes, Mayor. So
Go
the
ahead.
funding and the program and the workload won't change. Well, the workload may change, but the program and the staffing and none of that is up for change.
Okay.
And so it was more about if the front door into SA Core calls, which are 911 calls that are mental health that get sent to response changes, then the amount that they might actually respond to would change. But the staffing, the funding, the program isn't going to change at all. So if those other interventions, the diversion center or anything else, do or do not happen or happen differently or anything like that, the actual staffing in the program is exactly the same.
Okay.
So I expect that the numbers can stay the same as they have been this year.
Okay, so your funding and your ask for personnel and for funding is the same if you're funding for 5,800 in FY26 and the same for 5,000 in FY27? It doesn't make sense.
Mayor, if I may,
Yeah, please.
you bring a good point. We will revise that goal because
Okay.
there's no decrease in the number of mental health calls and there's no decrease in funding.
Okay.
So we will maintain the same level of output that we have in the current fiscal year.
Okay, 5,800.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. The Center for, Claude, the Center for Policy and Health Improvement, in particular on the on the maternal mortality pilot, I understand that, it's early on, didn't really get off, but can you talk a little bit about some of the things that was trying to achieve had it been fully funded?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this is part of a multi-year commitment that we had tied to SA Forward and the priority around improving access to care. In the development of this, we had the team tasked with developing policies, looking at training modalities, and looking at ways to enhance programs and referrals, working with our community of OBGYNs, nursing, midwifery, around behavioral mental health counseling, doula and birth support services. And so it's part of a broader pilot that we've launched over the past year, and that would be sunset. Again, the actual pilot called Community Alliance for Results in Equity would be impacted by this, the reduction. The ongoing commitment would be to support the prenatal work group, which is one of the 4 priority areas of our community health improvement plan. Again, we're one of many, so we would be forfeiting our staffing support for the ongoing work for that particular work group. The work would be continuing, but we would not be staffing it.
Okay. So I understand we wouldn't be staffing it, but we initially saw value in participating in that based on the outcomes that we were helping to achieve, correct?
That is
so
correct.
Can you help us quantify what we're now not getting as a result of not funding that?
I'm going to invite Dr. Wu to at least acknowledge some of the activities. It would be difficult to quantify how many sessions or services, but just know that this was part of the design of this initiative, this pilot. Yes, it's difficult to quantify.
Yeah, and I would certainly not expect that our quantification would be number of meetings attended, but rather our understanding of, the city obviously has a really important voice when it comes to addressing this and being able to not only help then shape our federal agenda, but also shape our state agenda. So I'm sure there were also, we were a key voice in understanding what are the outcomes that the collective body is trying to pursue. So I'd like us to help to understand what those outcomes are as it relates to our participation and funding.
So the short-term outcomes, we're looking at clinic practices and policy changes, improving accessibility to referral resources. We're looking at increased provider knowledge and skill set around providing equitable care, looking at sustained practices, again, and policies taken up by our provider network, improve patient-provider trust, and looking at enhancing community-wide awareness around this pilot project. The long-term outcomes were really about improved maternal and mental health outcomes for patients, as well as reduced disparities in access to care, as well as the experience and outcomes. So that's tied to our logic model, but that was the intent.
Appreciate that. Thank you. On the Health and Human Services. saw we have a 31% increase in financial counseling for the seniors, it looks like. So 418, increase, excuse me, yeah, 31% increase in financial counseling. So 418 is what we saw in 2025, and then 550 in 2027. Are we seeing an increased need among our seniors for this type of assistance, and do we anticipate an even greater need when we see these impending cuts in Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP, and SNAP?
Yes, so we are seeing an increased, we've only been offering the financial literacy to seniors in the centers for about 3 years now. And we've seen more participation in that every year. I think part of that is due to need. The cost of housing has increased significantly more than the cost of living increase to people on fixed incomes. And so we are doing a lot of work around that and just helping them get through and meet, ends meet. But also we've done a lot of social media outreach on fraud, and abuse, but fraud, abuse, and exploitation of seniors. And so we're getting seniors that need help either with understanding the scams, or mitigating the damage.
Okay. It's 550 then in 27. Is that based on the demand, or is that just based on what you've allocated the funding for? I mean, is the demand really 1,000, or is it 2,500?
It's based on our capacity with the caseworkers that we have, and it also includes our financial empowerment center that is separate from the work with the seniors.
Okay. Thank you for that, because when we look at some of the folks that are the positions that we're reducing. I'd like to understand if any of those, when we talk about, you're seeing it's a vacant position now, but it was a program manager that you'll be reduced by just one, right?
Yes, that's our faith-based liaison.
Okay.
And that work has been picked up by community partners, as well as really every division in our department works with faith-based entities.
Okay. When we talk about the financial services that are, or the financial counseling rather, to our seniors, but then also to your point about preventing some of this financial abuse against our seniors, that is, I think, money well spent in terms of, one, protecting those folks, but also making sure dollars stay in our community and are not stolen from the most vulnerable. So in terms of an amendment, I'd like to see additional resources for this capacity at our senior centers, or wherever they need to be in your judgment. This is just money that pays for itself. I know there's been discussion about the needed transportation as it relates to some of the sites being closed, but when I also look at which positions are being reduced, you have 3 filled chauffeurs. Are those the same folks that would be doing the driving, or are these different chauffeurs?
No, so with the 3 part-time sites being closed, we have 3 part-time chauffeurs that would be, positions would be eliminated. We have vacancies for the individuals.
Okay. Okay.
So Mayor, to answer your question, the answer is no.
Okay.
So the cuts that we're doing are related to the low participation in the part-time nutrition centers, and we have other chauffeurs in the comprehensive senior centers that will be providing transportation to the impacted seniors.
Okay. I wanted to make sure we weren't just kind of doing a little bit of a shell game, because we had talked earlier about potentially looking at some of the delegate agencies to help with the transportation while we were at the same time reducing 3 chauffeur positions, right? So I know I share my colleagues' focus on wanting to make sure we're protecting the city positions as best able.
And we're really looking at that delegate agency money to help us serve seniors who are outside of the 5-mile radius. So
Okay. That's very helpful. Thank you. And for a point of clarification, for Dr. Jacob, actually, I saw it on your metrics. One of your outcomes that you look at is number of folks that are enrolled in the WIC program. Is that what is the overlap between that and SNAP Is it the same group of folks?
Same group of,
Okay.
there are SNAP-eligible clients embedded within the WIC program.
Mhm.
So yes, and that's our largest single grant that we have at the department.
Okay, yeah, and I appreciated the information to help us understand how many, what the impacts of the cuts in SNAP are already meaning in our community. And to your point, it was 13%, 14% reduction just in Bexar County already. So I think there may be, but actually the thing that was also informative about your information table was that we're not even at 50% of the folks that are eligible in our community are enrolled in SNAP. That was surprising to me, considering when we went through the SNAP freeze last year, that was $50 million a month just in SNAP benefits that come into our community. So for us to not even be at 50% of the folks that are eligible in our community, that's a significant amount of money that our community loses out on as a result of our folks not being enrolled in that. How can we help you, or how do we need to help our community better enroll in those things? I know the food bank does this, but this really seems like, because as we've talked about here, we either pay for it one way, or we pay for it with the delegate agencies, right? So how welcome, you don't have to answer it now, but if there's staff that is dedicated to helping people enroll in SNAP, because that, again, not only pays for that position, but brings more money into our community, I think we've got to do that.
But we're not alone. So we work with area providers. We're one of the largest WIC providers here in the city. But just know that we're paying attention to what else we can offer and the complement of other staff that we have at the department. I can't hear you. 1 second. So Dr. would just reminded me that we built capacity by adding additional staff to help with the enrollment,
Okay.
SNAP enrollments in particular.
Thank you for that. I think it'd be helpful. I know as we're constantly reviewing the metrics and the outcomes, but a real intentional focus. I mean, we should stretch. I mean, 70% of our community, right, enrolled in SNAP, that's eligible. That's what we should strive for. And then, of course, we dedicate resources and energies toward that. So, Maria, my feedback would be, let's make sure that our metrics, when it comes to enrollment in that particular, would be is commensurate, given again how much money is potentially on the table for us in our community by doing so. Yeah.
One thing, if I can clarify, and I believe we provided a table that showed the SNAP cases and SNAP eligible participants. So I wanted to just clarify the SNAP cases, that's one household, and within that there may be multiple family members in that household, so that SNAP eligible is the members of the household that are included in that one case.
Understood. But when we're talking, I mean, if we're still half of the folks that are eligible receiving it, right, then we need to, I would think, dedicate some resources to make sure that we're going after those folks that are eligible for it, but just not enrolled.
Sure, we can provide that in a follow-up.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. I appreciate the discussion on the delegate agencies. They do such important work, which is why it was really important that we try to, where we can, of course, backfill them. And no secret, I think a great source of that is the ready to work money, especially even those that we know those folks, those entities rather, that can be plussed up without an election to change the funding of that. But let me just reiterate my amendments based on shoring up some of those entities, because unfortunately we're talking a lot about cuts, but if we are able to utilize that ready to work money, we can actually plus up many of these organizations that do such important work. I'll start off with the one that my colleagues, number of my colleagues referenced, to the San Antonio Education Partnership. I'd not only like to restore that money at the funding that we had in FY26, I'd like to double that money. So $4.2 million from the ready to work money in FY27 and FY28. I look forward to having a conversation with my colleagues about that. Next level, these folks do great work with Opportunity Youth. Again, folks that are in a qualified program that do job training, job placement I'd like to look at increasing their funding to $275K, from $275K to $500K a year, both in FY27 and FY28. Goodwill Northwest Job Placement, they do great work as well in our community, working with a very vulnerable group. I'd like to increase their funding, $150K in 27 and 28. Reset, which is the YWCA of San Antonio, they do case management and job training services. I'd also like to increase their funding from Ready to Work, using the Ready to Work monies to $150K in FY27 and FY28. And then I don't remember who, but it was one of my colleagues that mentioned the great work that It Starts With Youth does. The Chrysalis Ministries, this is Opportunity Youth, Workforce Readiness Training, would like to also increase their funding from $150,000 to $150,000 in FY27 and FY28. Of course, Project Quest continues to do great work in our community, and we have an opportunity to backfill using Ready to Work money to backfill some of the general funds that are used. But I'd also like to see that organization increased to $4 million using Ready to Work money, both in FY27 and 28, thereby freeing up $2 million in 27 and 28. And I'd like to use that, if my colleagues agree, to shore up their NAP funding. This is their infrastructure accounts. I'd also, in terms of amendments, I think I'm thankful that we have a superb UT San Antonio public health program, but I mean, with all due respect, UT San Antonio's operating budget is $975 million a year. They'll be okay without our full $2 million contribution in light of, Dr. Jacobs, some of the cuts that are proposed just from your organization. So my amendment would be reducing the $2 million contribution in FY26, reducing that to $200,000K, and the balance of that being utilized to restore the funding for Center for Policy, Health, and Improvement, increasing, well, actually, you just mentioned that there would be no change in funding to SA core responses. However, if there's benefit to increasing the level of that to 5,800 to 7,500, I think that's money well spent. I'd also like to utilize the balance of that 1.8 million, restoring the performance management team. I think with what is happening at the federal level, what is happening at the state level, both in terms of lack of awareness and lack of funding, we need to help ourselves, and we need to make sure that we are gathering the information, getting that out to our community stakeholders, and then responding appropriately and as efficiently as possible. And we only do that if we have awareness. So that's the performance management team restoration, please. The Councilwoman Kaur brought up a really important point, which is, we issue these fines. However, if we are challenged in actually collecting those, then we might not be helping ourselves as much as possible. So I would ask Maria, as part of the debt management presentation, if you could help us understand how much of the fees that we have issued are still outstanding, and then what process have we put in place so that we're not going through the municipal court fine exercise again, which is going after these things years after the fact. So would welcome understanding kind of the lessons learned from that, but also how we're going to go about processing those and collecting those much sooner. I want to thank also on the delegate agency piece, as a result of the staff's very helpful analysis, thanks again, Alex, that was about $4.5 million in funding from Ready to Work. I sent a letter, and I'm thankful to my colleagues that supported it, but looking at actually all the other entities, about 16 or 17 that are also involved in some form of workforce training, job readiness, that would potentially also qualify for funding from Ready to Work. Again, we have very few opportunities in this budget to plus up, but we've all spoken about the importance of that delegate agency work, so I look forward to receiving the responses about where maybe there's a plus further there. Okay. Finally, this is tough, and as my colleague Councilman Galan said the other day, you know, we're talking about real money here. I do want to make sure that we're being thoughtful and I think just judicious in how we think about this and our successors in the future and our city in the future. When we're talking about doing debt for streetlights, or when we're talking about, you know, decreasing the funding for some of these programs that are so critical to public health and the long-term strength of our community, we really have to think about the money that we forego as a result of some of the initiatives in our community. And shortly, on November 10th, we're going to vote on several TERS items. As you know, this is the property tax that we collect but we forego, to include extending the Midtown TERS to 2060. Annually, that's about $12 million worth of property tax that we forego. I hope we remember these deep cuts when thinking about foregoing property taxes in the future, to ensure that you know, we are addressing as best we can, as long as we're in these seats, the inequities that exist. And that means we've got to be as judicious as possible with the property taxes and really understand what contributes to the financial strength of our community and what does not. I would encourage some of my colleagues to look at some of the items that are that have been put forth for the Midtown TERS funding. I mean, as you all know, we talk about redlining constantly. I mean, when your life expectancy is 20 years shorter south of 90 than it is north of 90, I don't know if property taxes for an animal hospital at the zoo is truly the best use of our property taxes. Maria, would you have any final comments or?
No, ma'am.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you again to the staff. Really appreciate the hard work. The time is 12:55. This meeting's adjourned.